Live stream. Linux Unplugged. 219. 219. Live stream. Live stream. Live stream. Oh! Howdy ho, Mumbalo.
What up?
Hi, Kirk.
Hello, hello.
Question.
Yeah, what you looking for?
Oh, yeah. Just eating my dinner before we start.
Where'd the BB adapter go? Here it is. There you go.
Hello, Mumble.
You're gonna find me crazy, but I put Gen 2 on my HP laptop and it's running KDE 4.
Woohoo! 4, huh?
Oh,
Nice.
did you get tired of GNOME too?
How's the performance?
This guy and his retro.
It's running okay. I haven't finished installing it yet. It's on like 66 of 161 packages. And it's running pretty decently, I will say that. Gen 2 on this machine is running like a dream. I mean, it's got 8 gigs of RAM, a Intel 3000 graphics card, and an i5 2430M. So it's running pretty darn well.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Are we still going to have that Gen 2 chat at some point?
Yes, although not today. Not today. Not today.
Okay, I didn't think so. What are we talking about this time?
We ain't got time to do anything with Gen 2. I gotta go to TwitchCon.
Today is a very special day. Today. How's the grub repair going over there, Wes?
Well, now I'm just getting that screenshot.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Well, aren't you a gosh darn gentleman? Aren't you just a gosh darn gentleman? I'd actually forgot I'd ask for that. So, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I got to warm up the voice here because I haven't talked much, and then Wes and I just went and got some delicious greasy lunch, so now I got that
Greased neck.
I got that post-lunch crud in the throat. Gotta warm up the vocals. You guys ready? We're gonna warm up a little bit. Here we go in 3 and 2. Google has unveiled their first system on a chip called the Pixel Visual Core for accelerating HDR plus processing. Available on Pixel 2 phones, its API will be open to developers soon. That's right, it's called the Pixel Visual Core, and it's a big deal. That's one of the things they left out on their announcement. I'm thinking people are really going to like the camera on the new Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL, obviously, because it's the same camera.
Yeah.
I'm expecting it to have pretty good pretty good speakers because they made that design compromise for that they're no edge-to-edge glass, so they can have big speakers.
Boom.
Microsoft's got announcements, too. They got a $1,500 13-inch and a $2,500 15-inch Surface Book 2. They feature NVIDIA GeForce GPUs, updated designs, and up to 17 hours of battery. You can pre-order November 9th, and they'll ship November 16th. I have nothing to say about that. I have no commentary about that. Google launches new advanced protection settings for Google accounts for high-risk users, which require users of certain select settings to use hardware keys to get logged in. Now, this is going to be a big trade-off for obvious security reasons. For convenience and security reasons. So you get more security, but you get less convenience. You got to have a physical hardware token to get into your Gmail inbox. So no sitting down at some random web browser, going in incognito and going to mail.google.com anymore.
Wait, what was that?
Yeah, Google is launching new advanced protection settings for Google accounts. You turn this setting on, and high-risk users initially will be required to use a hardware key on every login to Gmail.
Well, damn.
Yep. OneDrive files on demand coming to Windows 10, the My People app to keep in touch with your friends via the taskbar. Yay, turning the taskbar into a social network, everybody. And mixed reality headset support, sometime.
Maybe.
Canada's excited to announce that Alphabet, the people that own Google, will invest $50 million to help develop a section of Toronto's waterfront as a testbed for smart city concepts, and will move 300 employees there. In the money, Magic Leap closes $502 million round of funding led by Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund, which I think is Tamask, which includes Alibaba, Google, Fidelity, JP Morgan, and other venture firms all in one big bundle. Dropbox wants your money, $20 a month to be precise. It's their new professional tier from Dropbox. For individuals with 1 terabyte of storage, it gives you OCR scan and, get ready for this, Wes, Smart Sync. I don't know what Smart Sync is. Also other business features, they say. Dropbox has a Plus account for those who want a little extra storage and got a little business. Intel says Facebook is giving technical input for a new AI chip called the Nirvana Neural Network. Ooh. It's expected to ship on a limited basis later this year.
Okay.
That sounds like it kill us all.
Yeah. Coming from PayPal. And, coming from Facebook, but speaking of PayPal announces over 2 million U.S. retailers will begin accepting Venmo payments starting this week, just in time for TwitchCon, Beard. And Facebook is testing the return of status messages, upping to 101 characters, and status messages that can expire. And then, of course, the news that you really care about, crack is still a thing, and people are still talking about it. And that is Chris's warm-up of today's tech news.
Well, I have some news. The EA supposed Star Wars game is taking a change of direction.
What is this new development?
Well, EA is closing Visceral Games, changes direction of studio's Star Wars upcoming game.
There you go. Well, that's probably bound to happen. You know, being in development and all.
Yeah, it sounds like EA is pretty much starting over.
Hey-o! Always a good sign. Always a good sign.
It says, an internal
What could go
email
wrong?
obtained by, let me just finish this. An internal email obtained by Kotaku indicates that Amy Hennig is off the project.
There you go.
Yep, so apparently Worldwide Studios will take over development of Ragtag, led by the EA Vancouver team that has already been working on a different project. The email says Steve Anthony will lead the team, and we will use much of the work that has been done to date by Visceral.
Oh, what a bummer.
The assists of Ragtag have already been built by the foundation of the new game.
Ben keeping us on the cutting edge of EA Star Wars games development related news.
Yes, and apparently the game will undergo a significant change, and so this is the studio that's behind Dead Space and Battlefield Hardline, and which was most recently working on a Star Wars title has been closed. The company has, but not the game itself.
What do you think, Beard?
Electronic Arts Vice President Patrick Schoderland.
Big development?
So basically, we've learned nothing about the game. That's what you're saying.
Emily in the Discord says, Chris Lass, do you like living in the RV? Considering full-timing myself in a fifth wheel.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah, all right. So congratulations. Fifth wheels are pretty sweet. I like that. So, you got your... We'll do a moment in RV here on the live stream. And Emily's considering getting herself a fifth wheel RV. Now, the fifth wheel RVs are big. They're like apartments because they don't have an engine and they don't have like the steering area, so they can make extra living space out of it. They're a pretty sweet way to go. It's essentially like living in an apartment. So obviously, Emily, I'm going to say, yeah, go for it. I like it a lot. Today was kind of an interesting day from an RV full-timer perspective because I'm about 2 hours out from the studio. Not even that far. But it's a long ways out from the studio, and there's a big storm today. Lots of wind, the power's out, and it's funny when that happens in an RV. It's not like when the power goes out normally. Because at first it's did the power just go out? Yeah, I think so. Because nothing really in the RV changes because you got house batteries and some units even have generators. So pretty quickly, it's just another day. And today in particular is like, that is really, really handy. Now, the flip side is that I got outside and I smelled something a little funny, a little stinky, kind of like rotten eggs. I know immediately it was propane, and I start going, oh, some dumb son of a bitch around here. They got their propane leaking out of their RV, and they're about to blow up their whole damn house. Wait a minute, is that me? Couldn't be me, could it? I better go double check. So I walk over to my rig. My truck's already started. I'm about to leave to come into the studio, but I better double check this. And I think it's just because it was so windy, it just sort of had been wafting it around. Because we sure enough had a leak. I opened up the bay where our propane tank was, and I heard this little And I was like, oh no! And so I quickly turned off the propane valve to just solve the problem immediately. And what must have happened is we have an adapter on there that I think got a little loose when we drove, and we just didn't really catch it because the wind hadn't really been blowing much. And so we, possibly could have been blowing up our home. So there's always that line.
Just a slight danger. Nothing terrible.
At the same time, though, it's pretty great to be out somewhere where we are. It's like stereotypical Hollywood fall time road driving. Like if they were going to show a car driving down a fall road with all the beautiful colors, that's where we're at. So it's neat to be able to go there for a few weeks, spend some time there, and then come back and get a little bit closer to work when we're done. So I say go for it, Emily. I think more and more people are going to be doing it. That's the RV corner in the live stream right there.
I have a question, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend living in an RV to somebody that doesn't drive?
Is somebody in the RV drive?
I don't know, maybe.
I don't know. It depends
That's
on
a tough one.
It depends on where you're staying. Like if you're say you're like Emily and you're gonna be in a fifth wheel, yeah, it'd be fine because there's no engine. There's really nothing rotting if you don't use it.
Right.
So there's no oil to change. There's no nothing. So if you intended to just be permanently parked a trailer or a fifth wheel with no motor, it would be the better way to go. Now, if you're say you wanted to street park in Seattle and you wanted to be able to like use like the 48-hour and 24-hour parking laws, then you have to move every 24 or 48 hours. So then you're definitely going to want somebody to be able to drive. So it just depends on the kind of RV parking situation you'll have.
And if it's a trailer or a fifth wheel, that means you got to hitch up every single time you want to move.
Right.
And
Yep.
that tends to be a chore in and of itself.
Definitely. Yeah. And if you have to move frequently, a lot of times you probably just stay hitched, but then you can't use the vehicle for much. So it's
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess that's the only thing, and they're not particularly challenging to drive. Once so it doesn't have to be somebody who knows how to. Like you just have to take your time and learn. I didn't know how to drive an RV before I started. Now I feel like I'm fine.
What if I want to renovate a bus, Chris?
That'd be a pretty cool project.
Even towing a trailer is its own ball of wax, just because it's, you got to remember, I'm driving down the road and I've got like 50 feet of tail. You know?
Right. And wind affects you differently, and hills affect you differently, and
trucks go by you. You find yourself kind of swaying a little bit with the trucks.
Woo!
Man.
Yeah, they move a lot of air when they come rolling by.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
You don't even realize like a car, but in like a Lady Jupes, which is a 40-foot long box, she really feels it. It really.
Yeah, that's the first thing that threw me when I was towing for the first time. I was like, dang, these trucks, they're gonna suck me right in. No, they're not. You just gotta remember, they're not actually gonna suck you in. As they pass you, they're gonna blow you back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So JJ says, what's the purpose behind the bell? So the bell is usually to emphasize a point, to distract from the ADD monster, or to underscore a punchline. It's a multi-purpose bell.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know that that's prescribed, right? It's kind of, there's just a feel to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a bell, and sometimes you don't.
Physical props. Really what it is, it's just we need more physical props.
Yeah, maybe like a cowbell as well.
A kazoo.
Yeah, or something like so you can wind
slide
up.
whistle.
One of those things you wind that makes that noise. That'd be good. Like you were winding people up. I mean, we do have the soundboard, obviously. But see, the problem is that the soundboard, I don't know.
It's not the same kind of interaction.
Yeah, it's something about that physical.
I think that we should all make those businesses fail.
Plus, then he's always interrupting. As soon as you unmute that board, he starts.
You put a little RMS in there, it just doesn't get out.
And he's always talking about GNU Linux.
It's negative in the freedom dimension.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so we couldn't have any MP3s on the soundboard. We had to
horn.
re-encode them to a free format.
A horn would be good, A horn would be good. That would
An
actually.
air horn.
Yeah, that would be good. One of my favorite and less used. Also, I feel like we could use. Like we're way underusing that one. I feel.
Oh,
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
That can be just whenever we don't
Considering
know how to transition.
Yeah. That just.
Considering there's a bathroom just off of the studio, I would think the toilet would be used a whole lot more.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta sweeten it up a little bit. Yeah, I should freshen the soundboard up a bit. I've been thinking about that myself. It's just like, gosh, I would really like to just sort of freshen it up a bit, but it takes quite a bit of time. It's one of those things. Look at this. Apparently, I have a stinger. Let's see what is this? What is? Welcome to the Unplugged live stream. That's funny. This should be a good one. Yeah! Oh, yeah! I love it.
That's a party.
I do. And this, of course, that's a good one right there. But that is, see, none of this is... I partially blame Noah because he reorganized the soundboard and he did it in a way that doesn't work with my brain, and so I've just sort of left it.
Always Noah's fault.
I just sort of left it. I've never really reclaimed our soundboard greatness because, like, it's just basically what happened is he got a little burned out on renaming files, and so it gets to a certain point and none of the names make any sense. They're all just like hashes. So the file names are no good. It's all just hashes. And so it's like, okay, what am I going to go through and like rename and listen to every single, it just never goes. It never happens. But now I kind of miss it. I'm almost getting to the point where I'm willing to sit down and do it. I just, I don't know. It would be a good intern project, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true.
Good news.
What's that?
Updated software has been issued since Ubuntu 17.10 was released.
Join us for the world-famous switching competition at Linux Fest Northwest.
It's Chase.
Oh, amazing. I love it.
That's good.
Good work, Chase.
Yeah. I bet nobody can place that. Nobody can. What about this? I bet nobody can place any of that stuff.
That one's from,
I certainly couldn't.
it's from one of the really old cartoons, isn't it?
Nope.
That's Star Trek.
Well, yeah, but it's all of these are from a particular Jupiter Broadcasting show. Used repeatedly in the show.
Unfiltered.
Sci-Bite.
Yeah, Sci-Bite. That was
Oh, Sci-Bite, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
That was
Memories.
Totes my goats. Yep. But that's not what I'm looking for.
I thought you meant like where they originally came from.
Your face, dude. That's the Columbia sound. That is not what I'm looking for. Well, there you go. You see, now I'm already down in the weeds here. I'm already in the weeds.
I've never installed GNU/Linux.
Why would you?
No. Why bother, you know?
So happy hacking.
Never came up. Oh, God. Yeah, what kind of horn is that called? What kind of horn is
They're
that?
fools.
Yeah, I know, but what kind of...
That's like a old, like...
Foghorn.
Model T
Like a
Ford
foghorn. That's a foghorn, right? There must be that...
No, foghorn is more like...
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. That is, yeah. This is riveting pre-show.
The more I use this laptop, Chris, the more I hate this keyboard.
Oh boy. Beard's getting fired up. Shit.
I think that it's the critical flaw of this laptop.
And the value of this is negative.
Very negative.
Hello, Dan.
What's up, man? How's it going?
Good. I don't know if you heard the rumors going around, but I have evidence that Popey is an Arch defector.
I secretly use Arch Linux.
Yeah. And
Oh,
seems
man.
pretty concrete to me. I got on tape.
I mean, I never saw what was on his laptop, so
Yeah, good point.
it's possible.
Likely even.
Well,
Went past him.
we are just about in the go position, I think. What was it I was doing? I felt like I was doing something, you know? I've lost my way now. These shows, they all run together. 219, though. 219. You know what that means? It's been 219 weeks since I did an episode of Plan B. That's what that means.
That's a long time.
That is a long, long time. I when we stopped doing Plan B, I you know what I think I'll do with my free time is I think I'll start a podcast where I just read all of the fucking emails I get for the Linux Action Show and respond to the good ones on the show. Because, geez, we're just getting too much email.
Hey, Chris, when was the last time you read email?
I know.
Unplugged?
I know. And so then that became popular because I had the Mumble Room there and we could talk about the emails and stuff. And then it was like, and then I got into it. I'm like, well, shit, I can't just do a show about email. That's really boring. So then I had to add a few
I gotta
things to it.
unplug this.
Yeah, it's like I kept adding stuff to it, and then like I got into it, and it was more successful than Plan B. And now I look back at it and I go, well, shit, I wish I was still doing a Bitcoin podcast because it's kind of a hot commodity right now.
And next week we're launching a show called Jupiter Mail.
I think that we should all make those businesses fail.
Oh, they're failing on their own. Don't worry.
I wish we'd gotten more than one.
Yeah, we're very dumb on that.
I feel like this is a 2 Red Bull show. Don't you think? This is a 2 Red Bull show.
Oh, easy. Might even be 3. I don't know.
No, you're actually drinking water.
Beard, what's wrong
I
with you?
forgot I had a coffee. But I'm all like...
I know. I'm actually debating, do I want to delay the show so I can go get myself... I think I got to get something to drink.
Do it.
I think I got it.
It's fine. The show will
All
go
right.
on. We'll get there.
Thanks, guys.
It's going to happen.
I'll be right back.
I'm pretty sure.
You want to grab me a coffee while you're out
Sorry.
there, Chris?
All right. You want one of the cans?
There's only one left.
Okay.
We're a very caffeine-focused show. That's actually the theme. Caffeine, under-caffeination. Sleep is
I don't
dead.
know. Isn't like the main ingredient in Red Bull like guarana?
Yeah, okay. Fine, Beard.
Basically, we just want stimulants.
I mean, any kind. We're not picky or choosy or judgmental about it.
How do you know I don't want the coffee for its laxative properties?
You know, I wasn't going to ask about that really at all. I was planning on staying as far away from that particular subject as I possibly could.
Listen, any show that involves me has to have poop on it. That's how it is.
I'm learning things all the time about you and
I mean,
other
just
things.
Technically, it's any show with you, me, and Chris.
Yeah, that you're right. That is how it
I mean,
goes.
the last time we were all on a show together, we called it Poop Legs.
What happened? What happened?
Oh, I was just telling Wes how every show that has you, me, and him on it has to include poop.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you guys are done screwing around.
Never? No? Here's that, I don't know what the best way to transfer it is, but...
you want to just toss it in the top of El Doc there for me?
Yeah, all right, I can do that.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
All right, Mumble Room. Buckle up. We're going to get going. Dan, I was going to say, you sound good today.
Oh, yeah.
You sound good. Did you tweak something?
Man. Well, I got a little pop filter and throw it on my mic. Actually, I kind of upgraded my whole little setup here. I got one of those fancy like arm thingies with the
Ooh.
Right? Like you're not a real
That's how you transition to
podcast.
be
You're
a
like
pro.
yeah, you are becoming dude, nice. And it's paying off. You sound good.
Thanks, man.
So
Thanks.
so same mic though, but you just like you rearranged the setup a bit?
Same mic, I just added a pop filter.
Well, there you go. All right, stand by. Here we go. It is time. And it's 2:19. That's pretty nice, 2:19. We're almost at 2:20. Oh, shit. That moment I realized I meant to confirm with a guest about next week's episode so I could say they'd be in this week's episode, and I didn't. Damn it. I had one freaking job. Here's something weird. Also, why is the intro clip not in the soundboard folder? What's going on right now? The intro clip to the show is missing from the soundboard folder. What kind of cockamamie half-assed? What? It is. It's very spooky. All right, I found it in my old location. All right, here we go, guys. In a threesas, in a twosas. I hate you guys so much right now. I hate you guys. I hate you. It's totally your fault. This is Linux Unplugged, episode 219 for October 17th, 2017. Oh, welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly Linux talk show that's reformatting and reinstalling every spare machine it's got. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes, or so I think, because I've lost all my documents.
Oh, no. Well, hello, Wes. And over there is Beard. Hello, Beard.
Hey.
So, guys, this is an episode you could say I'm a bit pumped up about. This is one of those episodes that reminds me why I got into podcasting. I'm very much looking forward to today's episode. We're going to review Ubuntu 17.10 in just a little bit in the show. And we're also going to cover some rather important community news this week that we're going to break it down, as they say. That's how
But break it down.
we're going to analyze and break it down. Yeah, we'll get through some of the community news and events that we want to talk about, including some projects we just recently covered that need some help. And then 1710's here. Now, even if you're not an Ubuntu user, I encourage you to stick around for the review coming up in the show. In fact, maybe more than anybody else, I challenge you. You're a long-time anti-Ubuntuite. Is that a thing?
It is now.
An anti-Ubuntuer? I don't know. But if you're one of them...
Anti-Ubuntu? I don't know. Yeah. It's a hard one.
I ask for you to stick around for a bit. And if you're considering the upgrade, debating it, I also encourage you to stick around. Obviously, I had a lot of hands-on with 1710 at the Ubuntu rally. We've been running it here for days. I've been running it for weeks and weeks. And so this is one of those reviews that we get to do rarely. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. But we got to get to some of this news. This is big news stuff. So let's holla at our virtual lug. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room.
Hello.
Hello. That was nice and concise. Wow. That was tight.
On top of it.
They like got in a queue.
Yeah.
And they took turns.
Now, I want to say right here at the top of the show, next week, as an experiment, I think we're going to try doing Discord, just so we can do an A/B and let the audience decide what they thought worked better. So if you'd like to help us participate in that test, go to discord.me/JupiterColony to join our Discord. You can use the web browser discord.app, or you can download their Electron app. I guess there's a snap of it, and there's probably other ways you can get about it. Anyways, we're going to do a little A/B, and we'll let the audience being both the participators and the listeners, decide which worked better. So join us for 220 in Discord next week, Virtual Lug. We're not switching. We're just testing for one episode, starting with 221. We'll be back in Mumble until we make a decision. So we're not switching. We're just trying for 220 in Discord.
I'm installing the Snap right now.
Are you?
That's right.
So, give it a go on that. And I'm going to, and the other thing I have to consider, too, is, guests, because we bring guests in via Mumble and all that stuff. I'll say my bias is to stick with Mumble. Right off the top, that's my bias because it's worked for us. It's free, it's open source, and it's part of the show. That's my bias. But we're going to give it a good A/B. See how it goes. Okay, so let's start with a news story that's kind of a big one that is complicated. And it's this new enforcement statement around the Linux kernel. Greg K.H., Chris Masson, Rick Van Rail, I want to say, and Sean Kahn all got together and wrote up a big old post about this new signing statement, essentially, that's going to be attached to the Linux kernel. But I wanted to start with a little bit of information that's kind of interesting. Greg has talked about this every single year, that the kernel continues to change faster than it did the year before, which is nuts since it's 26 years old now. So this year, they're running around 8.5 changes an hour, 10,000 lines of code added, 2,000 modified, 2,500 lines removed every hour of every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those numbers are just insane.
Yeah. And so there's been a problem going on in the background. You're familiar with NetFilter.
I am.
And there's been some shenanigans as a result of a developer from NetFilter, Patrick McCarty. And it's caused the kernel developers to rethink aspects of the kernel license. Now, we're not going GPL3 here, but stick with me for a second.
BSD? MIT? Apache? What's happening, Chris?
So Greg and others write, the same processes that we use to assure fulfillment, quote-unquote, of license obligations, to make sure that companies that are violating the GPL come into compliance.
Mm-hmm.
The same obligations and availability of source code, all of those can be used to unjustly trolling activities to extract personal monetary rewards from GPL software. The kernel team appears to call it monetization for short. They're trying to monetize their code. In particular, issues have arisen as a developer from the NetFilter community, Patrick McCarty, has sought to enforce his copyright claims in secret and for large sums of money by threatening or engaging in litigation. Some of his compliance claims are issues that could easily be resolved. However, he has also made claims based around ambiguities in the GPL2 that no one in our community had ever considered part of compliance to begin with. So here's an example. This is really something. Examples of these claims have been distributing over-the-air firmware, requiring a cell phone maker to deliver a paper copy of the source code offer letter, claiming that the source code server must be set up with a download speed as fast as the binary server based on the equivalent access language of Section 3, i.e., he's trying to take Section 3 language of the GPL that talks about equivalent access and apply that to download speeds. And if you're in violation of that, then he's going after you. He's also saying that it mandates that paper copies of the GPL be distributed, that it gets translated to other languages, and if you fail to do any of these things, you're out of compliance. And because of the way the GPL2 is structured, he demands immediate action, and if you fail to take immediate action, then he gets to claim damages at some insane amount. For the amount of time that you don't make these corrections, he gets to claim damages. Then he goes after you for those damages. Because of this, and to help clarify what the majority of the Linux community members feel is a correct way to enforce their license, the Technical Advisory Board of the Linux Foundation has worked together with lawyers in the community and individual developers and many companies to participate in the development and now rely on the draft of the kernel enforcement statement to help address both the specific issue they're facing today and to help prevent any future issues like this from happening again. Now, it adopts some termination provisions that are from the GPL3 and essentially layers it down on top. It isn't relicensing because what it essentially is it's an agreement and it's a statement that says the copyright holders of this kernel code interpret this clause this way. This is our collective understanding of this line of the GPL2. And as a result, we also now assume these additional new things. And these new things are the additional permissions given to companies that have confidence of the copyright holder to reach compliance. So you're essentially allowing people time to reach compliance. And they hope this will reestablish user/business confidence and help direct enforcement activity back to the original purpose, which is actual compliance and not screwing people for failing to get the right download speed and then suing them for damages when they haven't corrected immediately by bastardizing language from the GPL2 to use as a hammer. So they're lacquering on top of agreements that the stakeholders of the Linux community or kernel have agreed upon. It's really complicated, but because essentially the top developers hold the bulk of the kernel code copyright, as long as you get this top-tier group of developers to agree to this new layer, this enforcement statement, then essentially you have something that is law in a way, because by making it very clear how the project interprets that legalese, that means you are accepting their interpretation when you now use the project. And so you can't come after them afterwards pretending like you didn't know. That's my rough non-lawyer understanding of this. It's very complicated.
Well, it's the law.
It is. If you want to know more or think I got something wrong, please feel free to let me know. And also, linked in the show notes, I have a FAQ that Greg KH has posted. I have more information about Patrick McHardy and his copyright profiteering that many developers in the Linux community have been worried about. This is something that's been brewing in the background for ages now. And apparently, Software Conservancy is all in with this statement. They have a press release that says they applaud the Linux community's promotion of principled copyleft enforcement. And they say the statement includes additional permissions under the Linux license, which is GPL2. So they agree this does not change the kernel from GPL2 to GPL3, and they applaud this new statement. So there you go.
Yeah.
Apparently, Greg says at some point more than like 200 kernel developers discussed the complexities of this problem to come to this kind of decision.
Well, it seems like it was a good decision. I can certainly see why the Linux Foundation would be concerned and why people would be concerned about the lack of assurity that businesses would have when trying to use it. And obviously, that's a big goal to keep businesses invested in Linux. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the other really kind of big story this week. So that's probably the biggest, and it's hard to really break it all down. And it's for desktop users, it really has no big impact either way.
Not really. No.
Yeah. But this one has more of an impact on desktop users. You guys probably all know about Crack at this point, Krack. Crack is whack. WPA2 is broken now. And you guys just got done covering this on TechSnap, so that'd probably be a good spot to point people. Is TechSnap and also Ask Noah this week. Both have really good coverage on this problem. So it's not really our domain necessarily. The Linux distributions are good at putting out the patches, man.
But boy, they sure are talking about Android and Linux a lot in the reviews, even though there's a lot of other systems and OSs that are vulnerable.
That too.
I mean, and maybe some of that is for good reason about Windows already has a patch, for instance, but some of our Android phones will not see those patches. But if you're not explicit about it, it's just kind of confusing.
Mm-hmm. Dan's here from Elementary. Dan, I'm curious if you have any any insights to share from the whoa there, that's some timing.
Whoops.
On the distribution side of pushing the patch out. Is that pretty smooth for you guys? Is it Is it something where somebody sits up in the elementary team and says, okay, let's make sure this one goes out? Or how does that process work for you guys?
Actually, for us, it's completely transparent because we're based on Ubuntu. We just get it directly from Canonical Security Team like everybody else.
Yeah, that is nice. And they did a great job pushing that out. So did, there goes Gnome. Hold on, we're gonna take this one. I bet we got Dan in there. So yeah, I'll cut file and then we'll we're gonna talk about this later in the show. We're gonna talk about this. All right, hitting start again. So we'll pick it up from there. Yeah, I figured that'd probably be the case, Dan, and they got it out pretty quick. A lot of the distributions did. Linux really kicked butt on this particular one. People noticed too, which is really cool. This is a lot of times we're right on top of the patches, but people just take it for granted. But because this one got so much publicity and it affects desktop users too, people noticed this update coming down, and you saw some real hustle. That was cool. All right, well, thanks for the insight there, Dan. I gotta say, we have been fighting some problems here in the studio for weeks again. We have these frequent now GNOME 3 crashes. And what seems to happen is GNOME takes a crash, and then when GNOME crashes, it seems to crash our audio server, which then we lose about 25 seconds, 30 seconds of audio on our live stream and in our episode recordings. And no, this is not deja vu. Yes, we have talked about this before. We actually had it resolved for a while. For weeks and weeks and weeks, we resolved it with really no complaints. Like Beard fixed a few things, did a couple of updates, and put a new NVIDIA driver on there. I can't remember what was it, Beard? It wasn't anything that complicated. It was basics.
I basically just updated the drivers and installed the new NVIDIA driver, and it went away.
Yeah, and so we thought, okay, we're good. We can proceed on.
Sanity.
And we have the LTS kernel. So yes, it's Arch, but we have the LTS kernel.
Yeah, right.
So we thought, okay, we're good. We're good. Without changing, we haven't done any updates because it's working, and it's only been a few weeks. Without changing anything, and only just a handful of reboots, now all of a sudden GNOME 3 has begun crashing again on us. There's not really anything of any detail in the log. It's one of those things where I think by the end of next week I'm going to reload this machine. It's just got to happen. And I've been waiting to see which way am I going to go. Where's it going to break? What am I going to do? Do I go Solus? Do I go Fedora? Do I go Ubuntu? Do I go Arch again with the LTS kernel and the LTS drivers? So that's going to be part of what we talk about today. Because it's in the background. It is a brewing, as they say. But first I want to thank Linux Academy before we go much further in the show. linuxacademy.com/unplug. That's where you go to sign up for a free 7-day trial and support the show. It's a platform to learn more about Linux, and they have really nice hands-on scenario-based labs to give you experience on real servers. They have self-paced, in-depth video courses on every Linux and cloud and DevOps topic, and if you get stuck anywhere, they have real humans, instructors, full-time humans that can help you. One of the things that's really nice about Linux Academy is their course scheduler. If you're busy, you got kids, you got a job, you got a lot going on, maybe you're like Wes, you live in downtown Seattle, so you're always busy. That's true, right?
That's right, yeah.
That's how
but I still got to learn things.
Course scheduler, Wes, you pick a course, you set a time frame, and it just helps you stick to it. It gives you friendly reminders if you want them about your goals. I was looking in here just yesterday for getting started on Android development. 6 hours and 40 minutes or something like that. And you get started on Android development.
That's the thing,
it breaks it all down.
I like to think I'm pretty good at unstructured learning, figuring stuff out for myself, but I don't know how long that's going to take. Even if you have a good note sheet to use, like Linux Academy makes it so easy to be like, okay, I have 2 hours right now because my plans fell through. I'm going to learn something concrete. Yeah, and they have offline stuff you can take with you to learn on the go, including iOS and Android apps and those video courses. Check it out, linuxacademy.com/unplugged. It's a platform to learn more about Linux. linuxacademy.com/unplugged, and a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Unplugged program. I want to do a quick little mention for the Linux vendor firmware project. We talked about FW Update last week. What a fantastic project that is. Got to version 1.0. Lets you update your firmwares on your Linuxes. Now here's the problem. They're looking a little low on funds right now. And you would think that like Dell and HP and these companies would pay them, but no, that's not how these things work, unfortunately. And so there's some hosting costs here. And I really feel like these guys are an undersold asset to the community. And they are asking for humble things. They say at the moment the secure part of the Linux
vendor firmware project is hosted on a dedicated Scaleway instance, so any additional donations would be spent on paying this small bill, and perhaps more importantly, buying some second-hand hardware to include as part of our release QA checks. Now, if this was a business that delivered, if Linux was a business that delivered firmware updates to its customers, they wouldn't be scrapping together a couple of $1,000s and buying secondhand hardware. And this is one of the unsung hero aspects of open sources. Often, this stuff is being done on budgets that are inconceivable to multinational companies. And I would be wonderful if this was not a project that was hurting for time and resources and money. If they could pay for developers, if they could pay for hosting, I really think that would be a good use of people's time and money. If you want to donate, they accept payments via LibrePay or PayPal. They have details on their website, which we have linked in the show notes. Just such a great project, getting your firmware updates out there, like your microcode updates and your all the other stuff out there.
Yeah, but previously you had to boot into some crazy FreeDOS or load up your Windows system and hope that you don't brick everything.
And it's still early days too, so we have more that needs to be done. We have more work that needs to be done still, so help them get there. Ike's got some work on his hands. I struggle to understand this completely, but it is essentially a compatibility layer for Steam that could work across all distributions using snaps, and a new feature of Snap 2.28 called bases, which allow you to create a soulless base snap. Whoa, take that in for a second. A soulless base snap. So he can create an environment based on the soulless base snap that you could put on an Ubuntu box and a Fedora box and an Arch box. You know what I'm saying?
I want that right now.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat feature, and I guess technically everything right now is just sort of based on like a core snap. Everything's dependent on like core snap, which is like base Ubuntu system, but it could be a Fedora or Solus.
Right, it doesn't matter.
So Ike is using this new fangled base technology to create this Linux Steam integration layer that is basically a replacement for the runtime stuff that's done now with Steam, in theory.
So we could all get access to all the hard work they've done over in the Solus world of having that top-notch Steam runtime.
The core thing I know we won't talk about this much, but the core thing you're trying to get out of this is you have a lot of good hard work that's gone into libraries and drivers and all this stuff that Ubuntu 12.04 simply does not have because it's from 2012. Think about that. That's a long time in
great
desktop
year
Linux.
that it was,
right?
Be it in the past.
But that is what the Steam runtime is based on. And that's why early on, Ike was trying to solve this problem with the little menu. I forgot what it's called. Damn it. But it's a little menu that comes up and it asks you to choose native libraries or Steam libraries. It's like the Steam integration chooser or whatever. And that's the first attempt at this. This is like the final attempt at solving this problem, and it solves it for all distributions too. They talk about it more in the most recent Late Night Linux if you want to hear Ike talk about it, because he could explain it better than I could. But I would love to see it. As somebody who jumps distros, that's really why I find this to be interesting, is it would allow me to distro hop but still have the same consistent Steam experience.
Right.
And this is how they're going to do it. They're going to have to target these bases like this.
But it's really also nice to see like that Snap functionality really coming along, because like Snap has come a long way as a format and as just like the tooling is available, that now that seems totally reasonable. And maybe in the future it'll be, once we have Snap on more distributions, or at least more like in the defaults, telling people how to start gaming on Linux should be really easy, and we can be confident that it'll just work.
So Dan, I've seen a recent Insight post over at Canonical about Elementary working with Snap packages, but I've also seen the Elementary Twitter account say you guys are also excited about Flatpak. So what's going on over at Elementary with snaps and Flatpaks and future integration of snaps? Where's all that at least right now?
I mean, I think overall the consensus is that it's early days on kind of both of these projects. And there's a lot of people doing really interesting things to kind of push it forward and get ready to start shipping it. I know that Martin's working on distributing snaps in Ubuntu Mate. But for us, when we're looking to adopt a new technology or change kind of the way that we do things, like we subscribe to this idea of having a one true development path. And so we want to make sure that if we pick a technology and say, hey, we like this and we're going to go with this, that we've tested it really thoroughly and that it works for like everything across the board, and that it's something that we can tell our third-party developer community that it works right now for them to use. So we're still trying to like explore, and we're totally happy to like attend events and work with the upstreams.
Do you feel like there's some political waters though you have to navigate a bit? Like you don't want to upset different camps, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's some politics to it, but there's also some like brand management to it as well. Like, I had third-party developers messaging me after the Canonical blog post asking like, "Hey, do I need to start getting my apps ready for snaps?" So they're expecting more communication from us on that, and it's kind of be like, "Hey, no, not yet. We're still looking into it."
Yeah, it's of course. It's like a big topic right now, but it feels like it's got another 9 months at least before, like it really, like we're giving it it's good that we're talking about it, but I think it gets probably more discussion than it totally warrants, but it's one of those things, this is what's here, it's happening now, so I guess that's what we're talking about.
Right.
And this thing that Ike's doing, this Linux Steam integration project, this looks like it could solve real problems for distributions, Dan. I mean, I know it's using a Solus base, but if this really worked and it became sort of a ubiquitous way to get Steam working across distributions, would it be something you guys would take a look at?
I mean, I definitely think that for certain third-party packages, that being able to do these kind of things are super important. Like you said, Steam targets 1204, right? And they're never going to build a version of Steam for elementary OS. So there's always going to have to be like a side loading story. And it seems like container formats like Snap are the best side loading story that we could have going forward.
Yeah, and it also solves that there's no applications available problem. Well, that's not really true. Once you start getting a couple of these things in containered formats, and you start making targets like this Linux Steam integration target, it starts changing, because then you start targeting these. You can start targeting these base snaps instead of targeting distributions.
Right.
And that could have big ramifications on the availability of applications. And look at Ike here. He's not holding. I give him credit here. He's not holding this in just for Solus.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's kind of a big selling point for Solus, but now you can get it anywhere.
Mm-hmm. So, anyways, we'll follow it with some interest. I'll probably kick the tires. You have thoughts, Beard?
I just find it interesting that everybody's talking about snaps and Flatpaks, and app images just like been pushed off to the side.
I mean, you know what the thing about app images is that it only kind of solves cross-platform, but what's really important is all the security and privacy features that come with like containerized formats.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sandboxing is kind of a nice feature.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's like when I first thought of application sandboxing, I thought about how Apple did it on the Mac, and it's not like that. It's much better, and it makes sense. It keeps, especially if in business environments where you can have business applications that can take decades between updates. I just really like it. It's gonna make deploying applications that would sometimes be harder to deploy on newer versions of Linux possible in business environments. I've run into that myself personally, where you had to load a really old version of Linux to get an application to work, and I think this is going to start changing finally. So I guess it is relevant to be talking about it. I was
especially with all the security-minded support and other ways to secure snaps. Like I can already think of multiple ways where like, okay, well, I really need to run this Ubuntu 10 software. I don't trust it. It's really old. I can't change it. But a snap is just like that would, and then I can secure the 16 workstation or 17 with my standard tooling.
Yeah. Yeah, we're using them too. We have a snap for the soundboard. There's a snap for Discord.
Yeah.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Oh my gosh. I think what it is I'm just really pumped to talk about Ubuntu 17.10. So I'm like, let's get through all the news. Let's just get through the news so we can talk about 17.10, because that's what I'm here to do today.
That's right. Yeah. You're so giddy over there.
It's literally why I came into work today. I was like, I get to talk about 17.10.
First thing out of your mouth, Ubuntu.
Yeah. So let's clear the way. See, what else do we have? We have a couple other things, but I'm gonna bump them.
What?
Yeah, we're gonna bump them. We gotta talk. I can't hold my breath much longer. DigitalOcean.com. Go over there, create an account, and then apply our promo code DO Unplugged. It's one word, DO Unplugged. Gives you a $10 credit. Now you hang on to that $10 credit, because buckle up. DigitalOcean is a simple way to get started with really fast systems in seconds. Everything's SSD, from the $5 a month system to the ones that have unbelievable gigs of RAM. Yeah, gigs of RAM. Have a simple, intuitive API if you like doing it that way. I know we do. And they have a dashboard for days. It's if they had dashboard awards, this thing would be an award winner. They should have dashboard awards.
They really should. Oh my gosh. Maybe,
Like,
can we do that? Although then we have
service
to give
provider
something
dashboard
away.
awards.
Chris, screw the dashboard. Tell me about Spaces.
Oh, Beardsley, the Spaces. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like. I've been impressed with a lot of the features that DigitalOcean has
But
rolled
you
out
were a
over
little
the years.
skeptical.
I just didn't
You
think
were
it was
like,
going
what
to
am
be
I
for
going
me.
to do with these objects?
I didn't think it was going to be for me. I really didn't. I thought, okay, great for you developers. Great for you. It's so great, though, for me, because if you just want to use did I mention their wonderful dashboard? If you just want to use their great dashboard, you can go in there and just drop some files in there, generate a link, and have it destroy within, like, say, I don't know, a day, and then give people a link, and then it will download wherever they're at as fast as their freaking connection can take it. It is so great. I was pulling down files at 10 megabytes a second,
Woo!
and I'm like, all right, I know that's the max this connection I'm on is going to be able to pull that down. They're ideal for storing static or unstructured data like audio and video. So if you're working on podcasts and you want to send the files around to your co-host, it's perfect for that. Images, also text, all that. It's really well done. And of course, it's all programmable, like magical. What's the term for that? It's devmatical. With that API, it's devmatical. You don't even have to go use the dashboard.
I think it's just good.
Oh, but I want to make a new word. DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code DOUnplugged. Then you can spin up like their $5 a month rig, run it 2 months for free, and just try it out. If you want to try out Linux on a server, FreeBSD, or play around with Spaces, DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code DOUnplugged. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Unplugged program. How's it going over there, Wes?
Pretty good.
So before we started the show, Wes had to recover his bootloader.
Yeah, it's actually I haven't bothered to fix it yet. I just k-exec from my other installation because that's like just the easiest way for me to do things now. I don't know what the state of my life is like.
I love it. So you nuked your bootloader trying out Ubuntu 17.10.
I did.
And are you in 17.10 now?
Yeah, of course. It's 1710 episode day, Chris. Come on.
I know, and you use GNOME, right? You're using GNOME.
I
over
sure
there?
am. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it crashed on me while you were doing that ad read, so that's the theme of the day.
Oh
You
no!
don't say.
Oh no!
Yeah.
No! Oh no! Oh no!
I know. I appreciate your support. The hug here, it's great.
Oh, I actually feel bad for me, but so let's talk about Ubuntu 17.10 because this is a pretty remarkable release, even if you're not an Ubuntu user. And as you're listening to this, it's within hours of download. If you're listening to this when this episode's released, it's within hours of release and download Ubuntu 17.10. The ISOs are final. They're done. They're baked. And it's a notable release for the obvious reason, which is this is Canonical's first release back on GNOME. But I think it's also a notable release for another major reason that we aren't talking about as much, and that's the meta story around this release. And that is the fact that this is the first release after a significantly dramatic restructuring at Canonical that saw the layoff of hundreds of employees and saw a complete refocusing of the company. And during the midst of all of that, this was being created.
Software kept going.
And I think that's a particularly remarkable achievement because I have seen that type of restructuring and thinning of the herd completely derail a company for years, even into oblivion. So some companies never even make it through that. So it's kind of remarkable that they also are shipping on time with a product that we are very excited to talk about. So that's the meta story I think around this release. And then the other big meta story about this release was when Mark announced all of these changes and the grandfathering or the sunsetting, I guess, of Unity 7, the screenshots that got passed around and the general sentiment that got passed around was it was going to be a basic bitch GNOME implementation. It was going to be stock GNOME, and there was no Ubuntu soul. There was no heart.
They were getting out of that game. They weren't making a desktop anymore. Sure, you'll have one, but
everybody knows the screenshot I'm thinking of with the green GNOME background and the Adwadia gray theme.
Yep.
Default. That was the image that went around on the stories everywhere, and the character of Ubuntu was gone. And of course the alternative would have been, or they really muck this thing up and they make it like some crazy GNOME fork to make it like Unity 7. So we don't want that either. So it seemed like there was two routes in front of us, and neither one of them were any good. And people assumed that Ubuntu was out of the desktop game. Now here we are 6 months later, and this thing definitely has the soul of Ubuntu. If you just look at the screenshots, you know this is an Ubuntu system. And I have heard multiple different users now who sat down for the first time, both of them that I'm thinking of actually, or Plasma users, and Beardsley over here.
Yep.
So when they said, like, oh, this is Unity. This is Unity.
It feels like it from the, yeah.
It's pretty remarkable that they got here and they did it in a way that didn't piss off upstream, that listened to the feedback of the community, and has resulted in a project that is significantly different than any release we've seen from Ubuntu in ages. Significantly. We've never seen an Ubuntu release like this in modern Ubuntu releases.
It's a new era, is what it feels like.
It is definitely a new era. And it's also right before their next major LTS.
Yeah.
So it is the release to work this stuff out, because the next LTS has got to be pretty rock solid. So it's a hell of a release to review. And sure enough, if it's not the kind of thing that legitimately gets me up in the morning and makes me want to podcast, because even if you're not an Ubuntu user, there's a lot here to take in and to appreciate. And so I wanted to start with you guys to just start talking about our impressions of Ubuntu 17.10. I'm coming at it from somebody who's been watching the development very closely from day one. And so in such, I have lost a little bit of the, wow, look at this in its totality, because I've sort of been there as each step has come along.
Well, you've also literally traveled across the country to witness some of that development.
Yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
There's that too. So I'll tell you, I guess what I would start with, just to sort of kick it off, is the dock that they have decided to implement in this is where we need to start, because this was the necessary piece. If you remove this from this GNOME setup, this doesn't really feel much like an Ubuntu setup, especially if you change the background. And they did it in a very sort of a polite upstream way that seems to be working well. And having gone to the Ubuntu rally, I watched firsthand why it's sort of important that they own this piece of the desktop for themselves. And in the last post, Ubuntu GNOME Shell and Artful, day 15, Didrox talks a little bit about the quick fix that they had in the rally around their dock. This simple sort of mild fork, I think, is going to be an area they can continue to work on and really kind of just be a small thing they add to their desktop that makes it stand out without having to really own this huge, complex code base. And I think it's such a critical thing that they actually do own this piece themselves. And they've done that part right. The other thing I like as a GNOME desktop user is I like that I'm finally able to install a version of Ubuntu, and I get the most recent version of GNOME. GNOME 3.26.1 is shipping in 17.10. And this is not a luxury that Ubuntu users have had very often. Generally, you got to go to your Fedoras or your Arches, your SUSEs for that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Or you were installing like something yourself from maybe some other PPA or weird repo, but
Yeah.
it wasn't just there for you.
Yeah, yeah. And these things for me are like really ticking boxes for me. I like that. I like their nice minimal dock implementation.
Mm-hmm. It's really unobtrusive. It's not in the way.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? I've talked a lot now, Wes. I got more to say, but I want to give you a chance to jump in. What are your thoughts?
I'm enjoying it a lot, honestly. If this is
more than you expected.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, okay, so way back when Unity was first introduced, I guess you could say I was one of the fleeing masses that was like, I don't know about this. I'm gonna go. And it wasn't out of any like hatred or whatever. I use Unity at work. I have no problems with it. It turned out to be a pretty good, window manager, display, whatever.
Desktop environment.
There we go. That's the one. But still, it's been a long time since I felt, that the Ubuntu desktop was the desktop for me, that like I was going to put it on systems and use it, and that it would be a workable day-to-day system. Like work has different constraints, right? But like on my personal machines, this feels like, I'm not saying that I'm going to, but this feels very close to like I could be excited about it. The combination of like really good snap support, a modern kernel, modern GNOME, a lot of this like features and things, systemd has really all those changes have really shaken out in Ubuntu. And sure, there's like differences. We were talking before the show about like, I'm used to Arch where everything's under user bin, and that's not quite so in Ubuntu. So there are differences, but it's gotten so small that it's just a super usable setup for me. I will be curious, like at work, I have 3 monitors connected all by DisplayPort, and Unity handles it pretty darn well. Not perfect, but I'll be really curious to see, like, Unity did pretty well with multi-monitor setup, so how does GNOME cope with that? I'm not sure.
Speaking of using it in the work environment, one of the things I use a lot when I'm working on my laptop during the day is Bluetooth, because I have a Bose SoundLink or whatever it's called, and pretty good sound. And I before Ubuntu 17.10, every day, every morning, I would have to delete the pairing and repair with my Bose for audio to work.
Yeah,
it would show up, it would connect, but Pulse would never send sound to my Bluetooth audio device. But if I delete and repair, which is a fairly painless process, then I could. So I just made that part of my morning routine when I was getting down to work. But now with 17.10, I have not had to do that.
Wow.
So I know that they claim 1,000 upstream fixes to Bluetooth or Bluesy. It would if one of those thousands fixed my problem, I'm very grateful.
I will
for
have
it.
to do some testing with that, because
I encourage
a nice thing
you
to have more and more things are Bluetooth. And
I've also had some anecdotal notes about better mouse pairing and things like that, like accessory pairings. I've only been testing speakers myself, but because I have another speaker I had the same problem. It's called the 808 Thump. Same exact problem I was having with the Bose. So I know it wasn't unique to the Bose, because I had the same issue with another Bluetooth speaker. Both of those work. Very, very, very happy about that, because it's just so nice that I just turn it on, and now that becomes my default sound device. And that's the way it feels like it's supposed to work. Along that same line, while I'm talking about my work laptop, I have a very sort of mixed results with battery life. And one of the things that they've done in this release of 17.10 is they've spent time on actually getting GPU accelerated video playback to actually be GPU accelerated.
What?
So there's a lot of stuff that claim to be GPU accelerated playback on Linux, Chrome, and Totem. I have some Totem in my and other. There's some others that claim to maybe be hardware accelerated but weren't actually hardware accelerated, and so we're sucking a lot of extra CPU, which was using up a lot of extra battery. And so I'm hoping to start seeing battery life results. I don't really have a good base, because the main machine I've been trying Ubuntu on is the first OS I've ever ran on that machine. It's the Librem. But I'm hoping when I try it on my other systems to see an improvement there.
Just gonna work.
Yeah, that's stuff I'm looking forward to. What about you, Beard? What's been sort of your takeaways with 17.10 so far?
It just feels like Unity to me. That's pretty much it. It's just it hasn't really changed at all in terms of how I'd use it.
So good? Is that good or bad?
Good. I didn't mind Unity.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you, it's the small stuff that's going to make this release stand out, that I think is going to make this stand out above and beyond the other Ubuntu flavors. As much respect, and we're going to talk about the flavors in a moment, as I have for the other flavors. There's some stuff in my opinion, in Ubuntu GNOME proper, or I guess now it's just Ubuntu proper, that are the kind of refinements that I deeply, deeply appreciate. And Didrox points out a couple of them here. They said with our transition to GNOME Shell, we're following more closely to GNOME Upstream's philosophies, and we've dropped our header bar patches. And they did some of these patches to optimize vertical space in the past. But the downside is it created a different class of issues. Action buttons are generally now on the top, and they're pretty much not noticeable with the ambience and radiance themes that Ubuntu ships with. Now, I'm stopping here for a moment, because this is the type of problem that I see in just about every damn distribution out there with their default themes, with maybe the exception of like Elementary OS. It's this attention to detail where it doesn't really, people don't really care that the buttons don't stand out. And if you're watching the video version, I have a screenshot up where the save and cancel buttons, they're there, but your eyes aren't really drawn to them. If like where Wes is at, can you even tell where they're at from across the room?
It's a little hard. Yeah.
Oh, that's the problem I ran into earlier, where I couldn't find the unlock.
Yeah, exactly. That's that exact one. So they are introducing some fixes. They've introduced some styling for the suggested action, and the story behind where they got the green from is actually kind of worth going to read his blog for. And they apply these subtleties. So they've applied a subtle subtle change to the disabled button, so it's obviously disabled, and a bold change to the suggested default action button. It draws your eyes immediately to
really
that button.
does, yeah.
It makes it clear and easy to see. It's something that if I put this in front of a non-computer user, they'd still understand where to click. And this is done 100 times over and over again throughout this theme. Another example is they've just made small changes to the way the header bar looks when you maximize it, so that way the gradients don't conflict with the shell gradient.
Thank you.
I mean, it's minor stuff, but it flows better and it eases my brain. It simmers my brain the F down, and I stop thinking about my desktop environment, and I think more about the work I'm doing. I was having a conversation with Wes over lunch, and I said, Wes, one of my problems I have with both Plasma and Mate is I end up thinking a lot about the desktop environment. I think about the fact that this icon is slightly smaller than the icon next to it, and I think about the fact that maybe the click targets are a little too small for close and maximize and minimize. And I think about the fact that the font's wrapping in the menu, which makes the whole menu offset and all weird. And none of it really matters, except for it steals about 10 to 20% of my brain.
Just the micro distractions that you're just going to keep seeing. And
constant micro abrasions. And these have been polished away in this theme that they have for GNOME Shell at a level that feels really professional. And that's something I'm really excited to sit down and just use such a solid implementation of GNOME. And the best part is, if you want to bail on any of this, you can install, I think it's just GNOME Session. You install GNOME Session, and you just log out and log into GNOME Session, and it's just a stock GNOME install with no canonical tweaks at all.
Okay, that's super simple. And then in theme it, do whatever you want.
Exactly. Just start from there and load up GNOME tweak. And
that's easy.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to go. And then last but not least, long term, one of the features I'm also looking forward to, and this is what I think is what's going to change my mind about where we use it. They're integrating Live Patch now into the GUI. So you can use for free the Live Patch service at the GUI level. And I think that's gonna spur a lot of adoption, and it makes me want to use it here on our studio equipment.
So just for the GUI level, you can.
I'm kind of liking the Live Patch service. I've been sitting back and watching it, and for a production system that I don't reboot often, but I want to stay secure because it's connected and broadcasting to the internet all the time.
Yeah,
it's great for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a crash today in the middle of the show. We've actually had to cut the show and restart the show because GNOME crashed on us today. And I'm hoping that the 1710 implementation, and I'm hoping that 3.26.1 will be more reliable. And I'm hoping that with a reliable, well-manicured GNOME shell that's been really well thought out and really well implemented by Canonical, plus Live Patch so I can keep it secure, and I am hoping that will make a decent production environment that'll be easily updatable to 1804, and then I can just stay at 1804 for a couple of years while I let this stuff work itself out. That's kind of my plan right now.
You can actually have, this is an LTS that works on the desktop. I can install it once, and for the next couple of years, just small changes. I don't have to reinstall. I might not even reboot.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
So, Beard, when you get back from TwitchCon, that week when you get back, I think you and I, because I'm going to wait, because I don't want to break it before you go, we should reload both these systems with Ubuntu 17.10. And we'll report back in the show how that's gone, and we'll just give you guys an update on how putting in production went, what we ran into, what it was like to get OBS working, and how the performance is compared to Arch, and all that stuff. I'm sold in a big way on some of the work they've done, and I really am curious to see where this goes for 1804. Because if they just keep what they've got and don't screw it up, 1804 is going to be great. Because this is really great. And I was looking.
Man.
Don't you think? Don't you think this is great?
I definitely think so.
Don't you think this is? Yeah. You and I were talking at lunch. This is one of the releases that's really actually got us both genuinely interested in years in actually maybe using Ubuntu on the desktop again. And I was looking at some results that Joey got over at OMG Ubuntu. Almost 11,000 votes on this poll, which is pretty good. And still 24% of people said they're not going to upgrade. No plans to upgrade. Now, 61% say they do have plans. And these are OMG Ubuntu users, so these are like hardcore Ubuntu.
Yeah, these are Ubuntu people.
Yeah, and I was surprised 24%, because it's a good release. Yeah. I guess maybe if you're worried about Unity, that's why we're gonna talk about the flavors here in a moment. But anybody in the Mumble Room want to jump in with their thoughts so far on the 1710 release or upgrading to 1710, or anybody been trying it? I'd love to get if anybody's been trying to get your thoughts too.
I have been trying it, and it seems rock solid. I even installed pretty much all of the desktop environments at once, and it's still
Nice.
no problems. No problems
Look at
whatsoever.
you.
Yeah,
You
I
animal.
know. I just decided, well, hey, let's go all out. Let's just go ahead and try it, and yeah, it works perfectly fine. Nothing's crashing on me. I haven't. I actually have. You every now and then you get that crash bug popping up to report a bug. I haven't had that happen once the entire time I've been using
Oh,
it.
nice.
Nice. Yeah, it has felt really solid to me too.
Mhm.
I have been really even impressed with the betas being solid early on. I sort of waited a little bit and then I jumped in. I was pretty impressed. Okay, so I also tried out Mate. I've been trying out Ubuntu Budgie Edition. And in the past, although not recently, had tried out KDE Neon. So I got some flavor discussion in me too. If you will indulge me.
Oh, please.
And I know I'm sorry I don't have any Kubuntu stuff. I'm sorry I have not tried out Kubuntu stuff.
That's on you, audience. You guys go try that out. Come back next
Yeah,
week. We'll
report
talk
back.
about it.
I can talk about that.
Have you? Okay, yeah. How has Kubuntu been anything noteworthy?
Nothing extremely noteworthy. They are kind of a release of Plasma behind. They're on 5.10 as opposed to 5.11, which just came out. However, 5.11 will be in the backports repository, the PPA that they have. So you can just go down and get that. But other than that, man, rock solid, like I said, been saying about everything else.
Good. This is going to be a bunch of new people coming to GNOME, I bet. I bet a lot of new people. And then there's going to be some people that are mutinying. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first, let's talk about linux.ting.com. Go to linux.ting.com to support the show and get $25 in Ting credit or $25 in purchasing power. How about that? Off a device. You can buy devices from Ting directly. If you bring one, they'll give you a service credit. And they have a CDMA and a GSM network, so it's a lot of devices.
Pretty much works anywhere.
Pretty much. You might be able to just find a device that works with Ting. Check out linux.ting.com. It's pay for what you use wireless. Your minutes, your messages, and your megabytes. Whatever you use, that's all you got to pay.
Wait, I have to pay for what you use?
Nope. You don't got to pay. You don't. And you don't have to pay for what you might use, which is how they actually get you, which is really incredible. Imagine if you had to pay for things like, in all the things, like how much gas you might use. That's crazy. That's crazy.
You do in a lot of things, though, like
for sure, like TV, like
health coverage.
Yep, insurance. Yeah, I know.
And we hate all those things.
I do. I really do. Yeah, Ting is doing the way the mobile is, like if they had to everybody had to start over right now. Like everybody had to hit the reset button and everybody had to compete fairly. This is how the entire industry would work.
Where's our Ting insurance?
I think, you know what? They should come up with some sort of plan like that, like Ting plan.
Pay for what you use healthcare?
So we need more people to go sign up for Ting, try them out.
Yeah.
We'll get critical mass.
Yeah.
They'll be forced to insure us. It'll be perfect.
It would take Canadians to save us.
They are already expanding into internet.
There you go. Anyways, get in now while they're in phones. Linux.ting.com. Go there, try them out. No contracts, no termination fees. They got a great blog, too. Lots of good stuff on the blog recently. Lots of good stuff.
Chris, I want that Ting fiber so bad.
Man, that would be a life changer. We'd be launching the Jupiter Broadcasting data centers. I tell you what.
Yep.
Oh, man.
JBDC.
Yeah, cooled in oil. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the JB.
Real pain to service, but...
Oh, yeah. But
makes a real good fryer.
Coconut oil cooled servers. That's right. Fiber connected. Anyways, get started by going to linux.ting.com, and a big thanks to Ting for sponsoring the Unplugged. Linux.ting.com. Linux.ting.com. Put that in your history bar and support the show. Remember how history bars used to be a big thing? Oh, man. All right, so let's start with the internet's favorite. That would be Ubuntu Mate. 1710. And this is this I would say is the release for Unity refugees. People that aren't ready to go to GNOME. They like the HUD. They like Compiz.
Mm-hmm.
They miss what Ubuntu used to be a bit. Man, did Wimpy and team nail it. So the thing is, most of us know, but if you don't, that they have going for them is they have this Mate tweak tool. And you go in there and you choose the Mutiny layout and, snap your fingers. And next thing you know, you've got essentially the Unity desktop.
People really like that. Like all the people I put Mate on, I showed them all the options.
Yep.
Almost universally, people have picked Mutiny.
Yep. Same. But you see you can see it right there. You see how that button is smaller than the Firefox button?
Oh, yeah. Huh.
Oh, man. And you see how this is a circle, but then that is two shirts that aren't a circle, and then that's a square. and then that one has like this extra thing that goes above the square, and then these are different shaped squares.
Yeah. Not gonna have that. You know.
Ooh.
So what you're saying is
Can't do that.
Wimpy should have gotten a Chris Last consult.
I don't know. Maybe he will. So I also want to give a tip of the hat to Brisk. My favorite part of using Mate was the Brisk menu. Really good. I know seems like a small thing, but having a super fast launcher that gets my searches every time I type them, and then I hit enter and it launches the app I expected every damn time. That made me happy. I like that a lot. That really. So the Mate layout. Oh, and then you guys know I just professed recently again my love for Compiz and the way it makes my windows look. All this you get with Ubuntu Mate. Right now, I feel like Ubuntu Budgie and Ubuntu Mate are the number one landing spots for Unity refugees. Because Ubuntu Budgie gives you sort of the advantages of the nice, clean Budgie desktop that's also GTK.
Ooh.
But you get that Ubuntu base. So I think those are two very competitive alternative flavors for the 1710 release. And then you're going to have your folks that are willing to go to XFCE or willing to go to Plasma if they're going to take an extra leap. But I think I would predict Ubuntu Budgie and Ubuntu Mate this release cycle will pick up the most converts from core Ubuntu. But I think core Ubuntu is going to benefit from a lot of new people coming in to check out what they're doing on GNOME. I'm coming back. I'm coming back to Ubuntu. I have been distro hopping for 6-7 months now, and it's been awful. I've just hated it. I just don't like it anymore.
Constantly installing things. No solid foundation.
Well, it's like, is this the system that has all of my stuff synced, or is that the other system? Does this one have Dropbox installed? Does that one? Does this one have LastPass? You know, all this crap software that I have to drag around with me now that is just awful to set up constantly over and over again. It'd be nice to be past that.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be Mate. I
Well,
really did.
You can install it if you ever need to.
I really wanted it to be because I've been having GNOME issues recently, as we just talked about. So I was ready to just be like, screw
Ditch
you guys.
the whole thing.
Middle fingers up in the air. I'm out of here. Peace out. Thanks for all the fish. So long. But then, after going through the whole round of them, the one that compels me the most and actually fires me up to use is this new Ubuntu proper. It's just such a solid release. It's such a good implementation of it. Even if I don't stick with it, I've got to use it for a little while because I've just got to kick the tires on this. This kind of thing, it doesn't happen a lot in Linux anymore.
No, not really.
We've had very slow and steady progress releases for years now.
Not that that's a bad thing.
No, it isn't. I just, in fact, have figured, okay, it's good. It's actually time for that.
We're just slowly going to iterate and fix things.
We could use a little more of that sometimes. So I didn't think of it badly, but I think we've forgotten sort of what this feels like again, to have a company come along and make something where they ask us what we want, and then they actually listened when we said what we wanted, and then when they went and made their own changes to it, they went and they talked to the developers upstream. It's just weird, right?
That's crazy.
It just doesn't happen very often.
Unheard
of. So I really enjoyed using it. Now, are you going to stick with it on any of your machines? I mean, what would it take to get you to switch away from Arch now? Because you got pretty good software availability.
I sure do, yeah. I mean, yeah, I very well might. I'm doing more and more things with Ubuntu on other systems, especially like cloud servers, etc. And so I gotta say, it is real nice to have just the one operating system going. And it's gotten a lot easier to, like, one, software availability is better, and it's pretty easy to run these days with all the tooling Ubuntu has, like to run an Arch userland or an Arch container for other things that I might need, or an Arch VM. So there's a good possibility it'll be on some of my systems at least for a while.
For me, if it's my work system, the number one feature that they're really competing with when it comes to Arch, it's not the AUR, which I think is what everybody assumes it is. It's the fact that if I play my cards right, I never have to reload that system. That install of Arch will last as long as that physical hardware lasts. And that is so nice because when you move into a distro like that, when you can get like a 5 or 6 year install going and it works good and it's still good performance,
especially on a
nice.
Machine where you don't you know what you do with it. You get in, you update it.
Yeah.
It mostly doesn't break.
Yeah. That's why I think if I was really going to use Ubuntu, I might actually, ironically, be an LTS guy.
Yeah.
And I don't really, because I haven't run Ubuntu as my daily driver for so long, I don't really know what the upgrade success rate is like. If I have a semi-customized system with a few snaps, maybe a couple of PPAs, and a few theme modifications or whatever, and then I upgrade that to an 1804,
yeah,
what
something
breaks?
tells me you're going to find that out.
And it'll be the first time that you're doing it with GNOME 3 on Ubuntu.
Yep.
So there's no guarantees. So I don't know. I can't sit here and say I'm going to have a smooth upgrade to 1804. I can hope for one. I can expect for one, but I can't say it's going to happen. But I'm going to roll that dice. And I'm going to load my current systems with 1710, assuming that I can get to 1804 one way or another.
Right. And if this is any sign, 1804 will be that thing that you've wanted, where like, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here for a while.
Yeah.
See you in 4 years.
Bluetooth fixes alone, GPU video accelerated fixes, and GNOME 3261 almost make it worth kicking the tires right there. Then if you would like to get into like their live patch stuff, and if you want to play with snap packages, and this is a really competitive distribution. But even if you're not into that stuff, there's a few things so this is the first review. We're going to talk about this next week. I don't know if this will work out. I meant to try to lock this down before the show. I'm going to invite Will Cook and some of his team to come on the show next week.
Awesome.
Post-release to talk about it.
That's great.
Hopefully it'll work out. We talked about it at Ubuntu Rally, but I'm sure this is a busy time for him. And I did mean to try to confirm with him before the show, but we've been so giddy about the Ubuntu review.
Been playing.
We really were. I forgot to. So that's my fault. But I want to follow up next week, talk about putting in production a little bit. I want to talk about using the live patch service a little bit next week. Some of those things, do some follow-up stuff. So
I bet by then, too, more people have pulled it down after the actual release and tried it out.
So if you'd like to join us in the Discord, because we're trying out Discord next week, you can do that. Come into Discord and let us know your take on it. I'm hoping Will and team will be in there with us.
Discord Ubuntu 1710 release party next Tuesday.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it's a little late, but better late than never.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe I'm going to be installing Ubuntu. Like, that's awesome. I mean, like, I have one Ubuntu machine here in the studio running Mumble right now, and that's it.
I've been meaning to reinstall. It was going to be Arch on one of my main work non-portable machine at home. I think tonight it's going to be paved with Ubuntu.
Oh! Mumble Room, I'll give you guys last words on 1710 or on any of the flavors if anybody else has any thoughts, but otherwise, I'm going to leave it there.
Looks good, and I can't wait to see 1804.
What about you, Beard? Any other closing thoughts on this release?
I'm a bit trepidatious over the fact that you're going to be loading these machines with Ubuntu.
Yeah?
Considering Wes has already had a GNOME crash.
Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it? Although it can't crash more, probably, but maybe it could. I'm thinking these will be the last machines, so we'll do these next week. Mm-hmm. And then before then, I'll do Airmaster, and I will reload.
Oh, you're reloading everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going all in.
I thought you'd keep like one machine anchored somewhere.
Yeah, but I'm so hodgepodge right now. I've got Solus, and I've got Arch, and I've got Ubuntu. I've got all the mixes, and I've even got a pop machine in the mix.
It's hard to keep that all in your head sometimes. I mean, it's fine when you're on one system, but like when you rapidly switch, you really kind of start feeling the cost.
And I just kind of want to settle down. Yeah. Just want to get settled. So I'm motivated to start wiping. Motivated to format, Wes.
It's just so much fun too.
I'll be here to comfort you when you come to cry on my shoulder.
And I actually like the Ubuntu installer. Like I'm just not an Anaconda fan. So this one, and I don't use. I mean, most of my installs are Arch, right? So like I don't usually use a GUI installer.
Yeah.
But Ubuntu one, like it's really not too bad. I know it. It's easy, so it's just quick to get through.
Yeah, it really is. It's non-offensive. It's not like the most powerful. Right, but
I usually just do all my partitioning beforehand, and then
I just did basic stuff too.
Yeah,
I didn't really. You did have a bootloader problem.
I did.
And what was that about?
Well, I'm not 100% sure. I might actually try it again and see if that same issue crops up. But I have multiple machines on here, and it's UEFI.
Yeah, so is mine though.
So
my systems are all UEFI now, I think.
Yeah, for some reason it did not. It might have been a discrepancy between where Arch mounted versus where Ubuntu mounts.
So you created /boot,
yeah,
and you created it using Extended 4, XFS, Butterfest. What'd you use?
I reused my existing /boot, which was already in UEFI and FAT and set up, which had my existing bootloader on it.
Okay, I'm tracking now.
Yep.
That could have been what it was, huh?
Yeah. In the past, it's worked fine. Like, okay, so to Anaconda's credit, like Fedora installs just fine and just replaces my Arch bootloader with. The EFI executable that gets picked is that one instead. I assume this will work too, so I'll give it another shot because normally it works pretty well, but this time it didn't. So that'll be something I'll fix after the show.
Yeah, I had one system where I almost accidentally installed my bootloader on the thumb drive because with NVMe drives, I'm so used to watching for DevSDA as my first drive.
Oh yeah, right.
But in this case, the thumb drive was DevSDA, and I for a moment. Almost clicked the wrong drive in the installer, and then took a moment and go, no, Chris, don't Don't do that. That would be a very embarrassing mistake. Don't make that mistake. And so I almost did it, but I caught the right thing.
The good thing about installing it on a thumb drive is you make that mistake, you just take the drive and throw it away.
That's true.
Nobody ever knows.
That's true. Yeah. Except for I almost would have just outed myself here on this podcast. So that would have been good enough. All right. Well, I would love to hear your experience with the new release. I'm pretty excited about it. As I said, I think it represents just an incredible amount of work. And in a way, better than I expected it to be too.
Yeah, and it just feels, I don't know. Like I feel like we've had a hard time explaining it. It just feels good to be this excited about an Ubuntu release again.
Yeah, I think that is part of it.
It's like a coming home kind of feeling.
I think it's just nice they didn't blow it. I think it's really nice that they figured out how to work upstream in the right way.
It's a bit too soon to say they didn't blow. Give them time.
Yeah, maybe. I haven't had unless something sneaks its way in. I haven't really had any show-stopping issues yet. I haven't had any GNOME crashes either with it. But then again, I've only been primarily using it on Intel. Are you on Intel hardware too, though?
I sure am.
Well,
I do have a Optimus system at home, hybrid graphics, so I'll be trying that this weekend.
This is going to be, when we load it on the production systems here, this will be NVIDIA. This will be, maybe that'll be a different ball of wax.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that also means I've been using Wayland now for weeks. And I didn't even really... You two bastards are using Wayland right now too.
Yeah.
Shh! Don't let our secrets out.
Holy crap! You guys are Wayland users.
We don't get this pixel perfect frame rate just by accident, Chris.
We're all a bunch of Wayland users now. Oh my goodness, that I didn't see coming. There is your big development right there. Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to kicking the tires some more, reformatting my machines, losing a bit more data. I kid. Do your backups, kids. Do your backups. Go put it all up on the cloud somewhere where somebody can index it real good for you.
You know what we didn't even mention?
What?
ZFS support still continues to be rocking on Ubuntu. So
yeah, I thought about it, but
apt install ZFS.
I want more. I want
your
more.
backups there.
Give me more.
Okay.
Give me more ZFS integration.
Where's my ZFS GUI?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I want a
Boot
ZFS paperclip wizard.
etc.
All right. Thank you for being here, guys. Join us live next week. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar for our live time. JBLive.tv is where you watch it. You can go to linuxunplugged.reddit.com too. Thanks for being here. You know, the more I think about it, it seems obvious. Like on our production systems, I'm going to use X. I'm not going to use Wayland on the OBS system. That's probably why you crashed.
Maybe.
That might be what's up. That might be it. So
I guess I should go look at some logs.
JBTitles.com. Thank you, Mumble Room.
Yeah,
good
that was
to have
fun.
you guys here. Thank you.
Yeah, see you later. I gotta go get my son from school.
All right, all righty. How did an episode I've been looking forward to doing for 6 months end up being short and low energy? How did that combination happen?
It's because we didn't start the caffeine till late, Chris.
You think? Maybe. I don't think so.
I'm surprised you didn't have Martin or Alan here.
I had a sense they weren't going to be here today, although I don't remember why. I forget.
Gotta get finished, readying up for this release, man.
Yeah, I don't
know.
know.
I have no idea.
But
Too cool for us.
But it's
this
kind
week.
of good, so that way we can,
This is our take, unbiased,
Yeah.
no influence.
There we go. I just installed DFS for some reason.
Nice.
Good work, Beard.
Ubuntu's moved to the right, which is a mention to about the window controls.
Yeah.
We could just go Ubuntu 17.10 review, but it's pretty basic.
That is very basic.
That's funny. The ZFS service on Ubuntu is called ZFS-Z.
Nice.
ZFS-Z.
Maybe it's a reference. Okay, what else we got for titles? What should we name this thing? What was that?
I think the house is breaking.
Did you hear that?
Studio. Good Lord. Run!
That was weird. 1710 blows in.
What's the name of the release?
Artful.
Okay.
Artful Aardvark, I think, right? Is the Aardvark still there, or is it just Artful?
No, I think you're right.
Does one have an
that.
Aardvark? Ubuntu's most important release ever.
See, if there was a bad release, we could do like
I know.
uninspired Ubuntu.
It'd be easy,
or-
actually.
yeah.
It's actually easier when it's bad, isn't it?
It is
Shit.
easier when it's bad, yeah.
It's been a long time since I had to come up with a good one.
Coming home to Ubuntu.
Come on home to Simple Ricks.
Yeah, exactly.
Come home to your ultimate defeat. Come home to Simple Ricks.
Ubuntu land, Ubuntu, and you.
No, sir. No, it will not. Unless there's a compelling reason to. God, that's simple. I wonder if we could find the Simple Ricks. Would it get us pulled down to play the Simple Ricks commercial? It's not a spoiler to play the Simple Ricks commercial, right? Just the Simple Ricks commercial?
As long as it's, I think, as long as it's not the last one, as long as it's the first one.
Ah, yeah, you're right. Yeah. These are so good.
They sure did.
60 iterations off the central finite curve, there's a Rick that works more with wood than polarity plating. His name is Simple Rick, but he's no dummy. He realized long ago that the greatest thing he'd ever create was his daughter.
I love Daddy!
We captured that moment. We run it on a loop through Simple Rick's mind. And the chemical that makes his brain secrete goes into every Simple Rick Simple Wafers wafer cookie. Come home to the impossible flavor of your own completion. Come home to Simple Rick's.
It's good.
I want to try it, though. I mean, it must be great.
Yeah, yeah. Guys, we got nothing here. How about
yeah, I should be looking at titles, huh?
What?
Ubuntu Emporium.
That's horrible.
Wow. This is why you don't get any titles, Chris. You're so critical of all of them.
What did you said something like this really represents the next something of Ubuntu?
Era?
The next era of Ubuntu? That's not a bad title.
Ubuntu's new era.
The next era of Ubuntu. What about that?
Yeah.
No, you don't like it?
No,
You
it's
hate
not
it.
bad.
Why do you hate it so much? Why do you hate
I
it?
kind of like Unifying GNOME.
Oh, damn it, Rikai.
I remember the days when you appreciated my titles.
That was years ago.
That was like last week.
How do you spell era?
E-R-A.
Just one R.
Oh, you like Wes's house because they're so fancy that you can't even spell them.
Well, I came up with the next era
Goddamn
of Ubuntu.
bespoke title.
After he came up with something. He said something and I shortened it, but I can't remember what he said now. What was yours?
You sexified it.
What was yours?
I don't remember. Ubuntu's new era.
Ubuntu. What do you like? Yeah, I almost like Ubuntu's new era or the next era of Ubuntu. Which do you like better? Ubuntu's new era.
Ubuntu, the new world.
What
or
about the
next
Ubuntu age?
Doesn't the next era of Ubuntu feel more punchier than Ubuntu's new era? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anybody?
It's just longer.
Anybody? What do you guys think? Anybody have an opinion on this? Are we?
Jive in here.
Are we just splitting hairs at this point?
I think I like Wes's more.
What was his?
Ubuntu's next era.
Ubuntu's new era.
New next whatever.
Whichever's better.
Next era.
Ubuntu's next era. Ubuntu's new era.
Then, okay, so so I think I either like Ubuntu's new era or the next era of Ubuntu.
See, now I'm kind of liking yours more. Maybe it's just the way that you say it.
I like the shortness of Ubuntu's new era.
Yeah, I think I like yours is like the point is better, but the other one's shorter.
So Ubuntu, so apostrophe too. We're putting an apostrophe in there. Ubuntu.
It's okay. I'm just gonna override this anyway in post.
Right.
I'm just gonna call it Age of Ubuntu.
New era for Ubuntu.
Play that.
What about new era for Ubuntu?
Yeah, that's not bad.
New era for Ubuntu.
I don't like that.
No, I don't think I like it now that I wrote it down. I think I like Ubuntu's new era better.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with that. Ubuntu's new era it is. Bingo. Bango.
Bongo.
All right, Mumble Room. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. Papa bless. See you guys soon.
Papa bless. All right, then. We'll just apologize for Chris because he will not.
What? That's an H3H3 reference. It's an H3H3 reference. You don't know about Papa Bless?
I know about Papa Bless.
What? It's what's wrong with Papa Bless? What's wrong with that? You guys don't like H3H3?
Get off the live stream.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I didn't realize. Apparently, this is a controversial issue that I have discovered. A couple of H3 haters.
I really like this Ubuntu Linux Unplugged. I mean, I'm just saying the word Ubuntu instead of Linux now.
Well, I'm an Ela Kleiner for life.
How much did
See you guys later.
Papa John's pay you, Chris?
Thanks for being here.
Bye.
See you next time. Also, BSC Now tomorrow? I don't know. Got Unfiltered up. Unfiltered!
Just watch the live stream all day. You can't go wrong.
If you were to peg it to the US dollar, it's somewhere around 100 US greenbacks right now.
Yeah, I looked earlier, it was kind of 70-ish.
Oh, really?
Oh, maybe that was 70 pounds. So yeah, about 100,
pounds.
$100,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's in that scale, and that's, of course, all these different cryptocurrencies. You can buy other cryptocurrencies with each other. And so people can buy Monero with Bitcoin and then use the Monero for the actual purchase, which is probably a common use case, and it's helping sort of seed the Monero community. And now you have more products like these from Purism coming online, and it is getting noticed by people that really follow this deep privacy stuff. Now, I guess we just sit back and see what happens with the Librem 5 and see how many stretch goals they make. They do have some stretch goals they're going for.
Yeah, but the first stretch goal starts at 4 million, which I think is a little bit ambitious. So we're probably not going to actually see them. I think it's probably going to get to about 2 million.
I hope you're right, because even 2 million would be a good chunk of change, and the more the merrier, because now that it's been funded, we're all in at this point. We all want to see this happen, and there's a lot of excitement around it. And of course, there's one place you can go to find out when there is something new to report about this project. That's Linux Action News, linuxactionnews.com/subscribe for all the ways to get new episodes every single week.
And linuxactionnews.com/contact for ways to get in touch.
And you can support the whole network and future content at our Patreon page at patreon.com/JupiterSignal.
We'll be back next Monday with our weekly take on the latest Linux and open source news.
I'm at Chris LAS.
I'm at Joe Ressington.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See you later.
This is Coder Radio, episode 279 for October 16th, 2017. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us, I believe now stationed in some sort of bunker, it's our host, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Guten Tag, Herr Fischer.
So we have much to cover this week, Mr. Dominic.
Yes.
Of course, some topics that I think towards the end of the show I'm just really looking forward to talking about. Let's put it that way. I don't even want to give it away, but we gotta clear the air on a couple of things now. So, are the rumors true? Are you currently stationed in some sort of development compound in the swamps of Florida? Could you clarify the rumors for me?
It is a small compound in the swamps of Florida with a sales guy, a developer, and one of the most incompetent high school students I have ever seen in my entire life.
So, welcome to the team, buddy. Yeah. Is this the individual making you coffee right now?
Well,
trying to.
We could call it coffee.
Okay,
I guess.
I see. This is part of the problem, isn't it? This is part of the problem.
Today's youth just, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I understand. I got a few of them myself, and sometimes I like to pretend like I am one. Well, much to talk about, and it appears that there is much to do about Kotlin these days. You and I talked about it, I don't know, what was it? Jeez, it seems like just not too long ago, but it must have been closer to Google I.O. back in May.
Yeah, it was during I.O.
Yeah, and it seems like there has been some, what they like to call traction since then.
Yeah, so Kotlin is taking over. It's expected to outstrip Java for Android development very shortly, and it is already more than 50%, or it's already just about 50%, rather.
That seems really... Okay, so here's the number. So according to a report by Realm, mobile development platform Realm, the announcement skyrocketed Kotlin's adoption amongst Android developers. The adoption rate for Android apps doubled from May, from 7.4% to 14.7% by the end of September. If the growth continues, Kotlin will reach 51% market share by December 2018. 51%. So that would mean Java would then become, statistically, a minority on the Android platform. Yeah. Seems like that is a lot of typical Silicon Valley projections. Like, people are just going to buy iPads to infinitum, and the Moore's Law is always going to be Moore's Law. And then it turns out we sort of plateau off and growth sort of stops.
Well, I mean, it's a weird projection, right? Because, half of the Gradle dependencies you're going to pull in are going to be Java anyway. So there's still a whole lot of Java running on these Android devices, even if this is true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good point.
And we see this on the Apple side, right? A lot of old-time Objective-C developers, older, angrier, grumpier people like me, are still clinging to their square brackets and using them where possible, but begrudgingly using Swift when they have to. I can't imagine the same thing doesn't exist for the more deep Android folks.
I think, too, you got to figure that there is a fair amount of people that are, and this is sort of the supposition of the article, too, that are abandoning ship just because they feel like the future of Java and it's really what it is. It's Oracle and Google's relationship is deteriorating.
Yeah, there's some the lawsuits with Oracle and Google. There's some political shenanigans with the Java. I can't remember the name, but it's basically the steering committee, right, in Oracle, and how that's all going down with the OpenJDK.
Yeah. Yep. And so it's clear, they say, Java on Android is dying, the Realm team explains. In fact, 20% of apps built with Java before Google I.O. are now being built with Kotlin. Kotlin may even change how Java is used on the server, too. In short, Android developers without Kotlin skills are at risk of being seen as dinosaurs very soon. That's not even mild. That's That's like kicking you in the gut is what that is right there. Like, hey, Android developer, guess what? You better get scared because the Kotlin monster's coming.
I'm sorry. He's trying to push down the pump on the French press with 2 fingers now.
Yeah. That's got to get him out of there. Get him out of that
this
job.
Is gold right here.
They can't make coffee like that.
Jeez. You know what? Don't you remember when like kids used to like know how to make coffee and shine shoes?
I made it for my grandparents.
I used to make coffee by smuggling myself down to Colombia, harvesting the white cocoa flour. Oh, this coffee. Oh, I'm confused. Never mind.
You know what's weird about today's episode, too, besides the fact that you have a young boy in your room making you coffee? Are you wearing a robe, by the way? But the other thing that's weird about this is Skype is not tracking the call time. This call length right now is 0 minutes and 0 seconds long. So this is a call at a time. This is a weird episode.
It's tracking it on my side because I'm on a better operating system than you.
Jesus. So listen, this isn't really relevant to the show today, but I've gotten a lot of questions about this, and a lot of people wondered if I'm going to do a special. So I guess it's worth mentioning today that people are really shitting themselves over Crack, the new attack against WPA2 that's been disclosed. The Crack is key reinstallation attack. There you go. And it essentially lets them do all kinds of horrible things against WPA and break it. And it's mostly all client-side that's affected. I think it's all a client-side issue. And so patches are rolling out for everybody right now. But seems like it's one of those things where like this thing that we thought was safe, like WPA2, the golden child of Wi-Fi encryption. Oh, yeah, by the way, here's just this little key reinstallation attack that I can do that allows me to man in the middle of your bit. What? Yeah, it is. Yep. Yeah. It really is. Now, vendors have been notified because there's already a bunch of vendors that have patches out. Android, it seems like over 40% of Android devices are affected, and the patch is still in the works there. And, of course, the first devices that will actually get the fix will be Pixel devices, and then it'll be up to OEMs to distribute it from there. So that, you know what that means. That means there will be maybe quite literally hundreds of thousands of Android devices that will just be left unpatched.
I'm not taking your bait. I am not ranting about Android device patches.
No, there's no rant to be had. That is just what it is now. That's just where we're at. There's no rant to be had there. That's just the reality of it. And Microsoft and Apple and all them, shenanigans are putting their stuff out. Doesn't really affect us, but I don't know. It felt like since everybody's freaking out about it today, it was worth mentioning. Yeah. So I don't know. The chat room and myself are pretty skeptical about this article about Kotlin. Now, Bleeping Computer, I got nothing against them, so they're the publishers of it, but it's a study that was done by Realm. To say that if you don't know Kotlin, you're going to be a dinosaur very soon, that just feels too much.
So I would say if they had rephrased it to new projects will be started with Kotlin as the base, that would probably be a much stronger, much easier position for them to defend, right?
Yeah, okay.
But the idea that you have like a multi-$10,000 or 10,000 line Android project, and you're going to go ahead and toss that out and just to get to rewrite it in Kotlin, and then if you're a purist, you're going to rewrite all your dependencies out of Java, right? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No, okay, yeah, that's where my skepticism comes in. Yeah. We probably have much more to see though, because it does seem like a safe bet. And I'm looking now at their report right now. I went to realm.io/realm-report if you actually just want to see the source report. And they also do some studies on Objective-C. Now they say that Swift is towering over Objective-C for iOS developers. That makes me happy. Just to torment you a little bit. Interesting, all kinds of stats. Western developers are quicker to adopt new iOS tech than India or Japan or Russia.
Sense.
I suppose so. They're also quicker to drop the oldest versions of iOS. US developers are the quickest to drop iOS 8. For iOS, Germany and the US are always at the top for, I think, revenue? Oh, for adoption, for iOS 11 adoption. With Android, Asia leads the pack. Not too surprising there. Well, this is interesting, this whole report. Here's the part about Kotlin. But yeah, and they call it Kotlin Rising. 2018 will be the year of Kotlin. It'll overtake Java and in December of 2018. That's about 17 months after Google announced official support at Google I/O and 2.5 years after Kotlin reached version 1.0.
Is it also the year of the Linux desktop?
Well, by contrast, here's an interesting comparison note. It only took 14 months after Swift 1.0 release before it hit the same milestone. So it's actually on a slower trajectory than Swift was. So that actually puts it in perspective, doesn't it? It does seem like maybe then it would be possible. So for some reason, I was thinking this was having. I was just thinking this is just some like early adoption rise. But I guess if you've seen the same trend in Swift, even more aggressive, it would stand to reason there would be an equal trend over in Android that might just not be quite as aggressive. So perhaps Realm knows what the hell they're talking about. You can download the whole thing from their site too. Realm.io is where they have it. I'm sure it's it's all part of a marketing push for them too. Well, Mr. Dominic. Now you really got me thinking. I went into that as a skeptic, and now I'm not so sure. I'd like to hear what the audience thinks. No, I might be a Kotlin believer. Audience, let us know what you think. coderradio.reddit.com. In the meantime, if you're thinking about getting into Android development or Linux or anything really around Linux or any of the platforms, consider Linux Academy, linuxacademy.com/coders. That's where you go to support this show and sign up for a free 7-day trial. It's a platform to learn everything you need about Linux, get hands-on experience for every Linux, cloud, DevOps topic, AWS, Azure, OpenStack. They have course schedulers that work with you. And like I said, Android development too. Lots of stuff that is just really, really useful. Even if you're not like going to get into Android development as a daily thing, you could go to Linux Academy as part of your subscription. In fact, if you're watching the video version right now, I'm logged into my Linux Academy account, and I'm looking at the Introduction to Android Development course. And it's a course schedule. It's really easy to help. It just helps you complete a course at your own pace. You choose what and when you want to study, and they create a custom schedule to help you reach completion and meet your goals. You even get automated email reminders to help you stay on top of training. And what I love about this kind of stuff is they break it all down into an easy-to-understand time commitment. 6 hours, 41 minutes, 27 seconds. 6 hours, 41 minutes, and 27 seconds. Well, I've watched that much Rick and Morty this year. I could watch that. I mean, come on, give me a break. So this is what's really powerful about Linux Academy. Plus, they have downloads you can take with you. You can start and you can get the things offline, so you can start the course, download the comprehensive study guide, get the audio for it. Pretty nice. linuxacademy.com/coders. You go there, support the show, and sign up for a free 7-day trial. They got everything you'd want to know about Linux too, and Ruby, Python. There's lots of all like. They have this whole nugget category, so there's tons and tons of different topics in there. They're like singular topics that are useful to learn, that give you value. So I could list them all off, and I often I fail to mention some of the juicier ones. So just go check it out. That's why they got a 7-day free trial. linuxacademy.com/coders, and a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring this here, a Coder Radio, a program. So Mr. Dominic is swimming in laptops these days down in the bunker, and one of the new laptops that's come across his desk is System 76's Galago Pro.
That's right. I call it my silver fox.
That's good, actually. Now, this one for you is running on the Pop! OS that they've been working on. And I imagine you're using it for many little developer thingies and shenanigans over there. So tell me all about it. Give me your thoughts and how it's worked as a work machine.
So it is okay. So we have some comments here on this. It is overall a very nice laptop. Now I'm going to compare it to two machines: the Lemur, whatever they call it. Lemur, and the 15-inch MacBook Pro I'm currently talking to you on for reasons that I just got an iOS project. In terms of, let's just start right from the top, right? The general power of the machine is great. I have the i7 model, 13-inch chassis, great size, great power. The fan does spin up like a TIE fighter trying to kill Luke Skywalker.
Is that a problem for you? Does machine noise bother you?
It used to not bother me, but more and more it does. Now, it doesn't bother me to the point of that it's a deal breaker for the machine, but it does bother me to the point that I notice it.
Yeah, and I'll even, on a system with really bad machine noise, I'll find myself altering my usage behavior. So maybe I don't use Chrome, or maybe I don't run the Plasma desktop, or maybe I don't use Compiz on Mate because.
Well, you know when it does bother me though. Maybe a practical case. In the evening, if by the grace of God, my wife has somehow got our son to go to bed, and we're sitting on the couch trying to watch a movie or TV, and I'm trying to do a little bit of work, because we have to keep the volume so low on the TV that the machine noise right there in my lap actually sounds pretty significant.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately for my tired and slow and simple brain, I find it to be quite distracting. And it's sort of like it's like a background process that steals like 10 to 15% of my brain CPU, where I keep checking in, oh yeah, the fan. Because I, for my entire life, have been oriented to like listening to my machine, and I have fewer and fewer cues. I used to have a modem, and I used to be able to hear the floppy drive, and I used to be able to hear the hard drive really cracking and searching and grinding it out. And then you could hear the fans, and over time, computers have become these silent boxes, which I do actually appreciate. But then that means the remaining sound that I get out of these machines is like one of the few audible data points I get about how my computer is performing. And what I have found is that a lot of fan noise tends to be very distracting because it makes me think my machine's under a lot of load, even when the fan might be kicking in more aggressively than it needs to. And I found that to be more common with Linux systems that you have 4K screens on. It just seems to be, you got an i7 in there, and you're pushing a 4K display. I don't know if you are, but if you, you are, yeah. If you're pushing,
I am pushing 4K, but yeah, i7 exactly.
Yep, that combo tends to just make it run hot. So the battery life probably isn't so great either then.
So yeah, let's do all the negatives first. I think that's fair. The battery life is just like not workable for me in a lot of ways. I'm averaging about 4.5, 5 hours.
Yeah,
but more on that 4.5.
Yeah, it's a particularly small battery in there too, just because of certain design limitations. I think. Yeah, I want to say it's like remarkably low. Actually, you'd be surprised. In fact, I think they're even considering trying to fix that in a future rev.
Yeah, I've heard similar things. Having said all of that, there is one other really negative thing. The sound sucks.
The speakers?
The onboard, they're just terrible.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I would say they are actually the worst thing about this machine.
Mm.
Because they don't... You remember MIDI files?
Yeah.
Everything sounds tinny on them.
Oh, yeah. I've tested that. Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, it makes me crazy.
So
now, granted, I don't think MacBook speakers are particularly good either. And
I disagree. I think the MacBook Pro speakers are.
Well, they're better.
I think they're remarkable. And
no, but they're not like I'm thinking
for the size of the machine.
Sonos.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Absolutely. Just for in terms of the thinness of the machine for what you get audio quality wise. In fact, when I was in New York and editing in the hotel room, and Noah was in the hotel room with me, he was blown away at the audio quality of the MacBook Pro 15 speakers. I don't know about the 13. But, even then, you hook up a pair of headphones and the problem solved, really, for, if you're working for long periods of time. That's kind of nice. So here's the things I like about the Galago Pro myself, though, before I let you go, is you get a lot of power in a small machine. I mean, like you said, you can get an i7, you get a 4K display. It's a 13-inch display, right? So 13.3-inch display. That's pretty competitive, just right there, just those specs on its own. So if you want something super portable, that's really nice. There's a few things that bum me about it, too, just while we're totally not off the negatives. I think it's a little disappointing that you can't charge from the USB-C. That is such a killer feature for me with other machines.
And just the way things are going,
Yeah, and then it would be nice that if the LTE modem slot was empty, just to
not like dead.
Yeah, fill it up. Put a little like a spatula or a little splattle on there, whatever.
You can totally do that, right? You can pop in a card reader there.
I think you could put an LTE. It's like for an LTE modem, so you could put like a
right. You could. I've said card reader. I meant transmitter.
Yeah, I think you could. If you could get it open and you could get to that spot, I think you probably could.
Yeah, you can. I've seen videos on how to do it.
That'd be really nice.
So here's I have one neutral thing. The screen is really gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I almost wish it was a matte screen.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like that's one strength they gave up from the Lemur. Like the Lemur really had a really nice matte screen. I know it wasn't as high res, and people are quick to say, well, this one's 4K, that one's not. But there's something about matte colors that I kind of miss. I think they're easier on the eyes in terms of
I think
long-term
because there's less reflection. You know,
Right.
That's I like the blacks on reflective displays, but I prefer mattes if I'm going to be in a work environment. Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So what about the positives? You know, in terms of working on this thing, actually.
So it's
writing,
gorgeous. I mean, yeah, I've been working on this thing. I mean, right now. So initially, for about a month, I would say I was using it full time, and now I'm 50-50 between that and a new 15-inch MacBook Pro because I have a Dragon Knight. And this laptop would actually get comments from people. The System 76, like using it out, stopping at a Starbucks before a meeting or whatever. Or, you know, we got to place your crazy coffee in Plant City that I sometimes go to. Because it's different, and it actually is really portable. And that's almost the biggest shame about the battery life, is that it is a really stunning looking laptop, but you have to use it in small doses when you're out away from the power source.
Okay.
Another positive I found really, really good, I mean, I meant that to be positive, is the keyboard is, I think, better than the MacBook keyboards right now. And I think it's far better than the Lamar keyboards right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. How much RAM did you put in yours?
I went with 16 gigs.
Okay.
So that was my next thing. And it's upgradable, right? I think it's upgradable up to 32.
Yeah.
It is a powerful machine that basically I have not hit any kind of usage limitation whatsoever.
Yeah, I feel like we are getting there with these. Like, I just reviewed the Librem 15, and I had that same takeaway. It's like, I can't really... I can encode video. I can build software. There are moments where I can really punish this thing. But for day-to-day use, I could just see using this thing for years with the amount of power it has. I don't know if
Yeah,
I would,
I could see myself using this for a long time. I mean, I have the habit of now, if I hire people who don't want to use their own beautiful little MacBooks, I'm passing them down laptops, right? So
if money was no object, so say, you know, a client came to you and said, "All right, Mr. Dominic, you get up to $10,000 in a computer hardware budget. Why would you buy this over a MacBook Pro?"
So the client gave me 10 grand for hardware.
Yeah,
I would probably buy neither. If that was the case, right?
Well, I was just asking specifically between those two because that's what you were comparing it to. I was going to also ask you like the XPS 13 or a Lenovo, but I'm just trying to see where this fits in.
At that number, I wouldn't even buy a laptop, but...
Well, I was just trying to take money out of the equation for you.
Right.
So say money was no object, essentially. You're moving money from the equation, and you could pick any of the laptops available on the market today. Would you still go with the Galago Pro, or was it the sweet spot of performance and price, or what... Would it still lead out, I guess, is the question, really?
No. You know, and that's not to be negative. I mean, value is a thing, right? I mean, System 76 is a very value-focused vendor. And in general, if you're comparing it to Apple, so is Dell, so is HP, right? I mean, everybody who's not Apple, you get more bang for your buck. But if, like, money was no object, you know, the $3,000 MacBook Pro on my desk is probably the computer that makes the most sense if I had to pick one, because I can do everything on it, right? I can do iOS. I mean, that alone, I can do iOS. I can do most of the web stuff. I can do Docker, but it's a little annoying.
No Ethernet, though. No built-in HDMI and mini display port.
So, right. So this is the thing I had in the review that I did get some comments on Twitter about. After all my bitching about USB-C, you know what? Resistance really is futile. Like, it is, once you have the crap you need to have to live a USB-C kind of setup, it's easier. Because you stop worrying about how many of this port, how many of that port. You know, the interface is standardized.
Yeah.
Having power and monitor in one cable is just really great. Like, I'm you know, because I have an office now in Plant City. I need a new monitor, a new setup for my house. I'm actually waiting to buy a non-Apple monitor because I want it to run with the Lamar until I can find one that's at a reasonable price that's actually just like USB-C. It can just be powered by USB-C.
Sure.
Because I don't I had conversations with folks from Systemic 6 when I was there for the fan event. And I got it. Like, some of my criticisms was a little more like, well, you're not the only type of customer, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But, like, this machine really is targeted at me, right? Like, MacBook Pro user, we're the target here. So I actually would say give up the Ethernet jack, give up some of the other stuff.
Wow.
And give me more. Yeah, I would go that far. And I would say even if you just gave it up to get better battery life.
Just stop fighting it. I mean, in one sense, yeah. Okay, so as somebody...
Now, don't on the Lenovo and don't on the Lemur, right?
I'm mostly there with you, actually, because I'll tell you, somebody who's been making the transition, one thing that I do like about it now is I don't feel like I have adapters for different laptops. Like, each laptop used to have its own set of accessories. And so it almost was easier if I had multiple laptops, especially when I had multiple clients. I had multiple laptop bags. And all of the accessories and all of the power dongle adapter thingies and whatever else I needed, serial to USB or whatever it was unique, was in that bag. It was all in that bag. And I would take the different bags. And now it's just all one set of accessories. I buy one. I buy it for all my machines now, and I like that.
Yeah, it's an imperfect analogy, but this reminds me of, remember PCI and then PCI Express came out?
Yeah.
I used to have two machines. One was PCI and one was PCI Express. And I used to always go buy, aftermarket parts. And you always have to think, oh, okay, does this come in Express? How much more are they charging me for the Express interface? Which rig do I put it into?
Yeah.
And I think we'll get there, right? At this point, I don't, the Google Pixel's now USB-C, right? At this point, I think the market is going to, kicking and screaming, drag everybody else to USB-C.
Did you see that Marco made a post about USB-C that's gotten some attention?
I did not, no.
Oh, boy. Yeah, he calls it the impossible dream of USB-C. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. He says, I love the idea of USB-C, one port and one cable that can replace all other ports. It sounds so straightforward and unified, but in practice, it's not even close. And then he goes through and he builds a pretty good case against USB-C. Because he points out...
There are problems, right?
The crux of it is... we're thinking about this real quick. The crux of it is, by the time we get USB-C with Thunderbolt, USB-C with power, and which way charges what, and which laptops have USB... Like, your Galago there has, I think, like a USB-C with 2 Thunderbolt port lanes, just like the MacBook Pro 13, where my Dell laptops here and my MacBook have USB-C with Thunderbolt with 4 PCI lanes.
Right. And my 15-inch MacBook here has
same thing. And it's inconsistent, and there's not like a proper labeling to tell you what cables can support what. And what his core point is, by the time we get there and everything's sort of caught up, it's going to be time for a new connector that's maybe thinner or smaller or uses a different standard. There's already talk about USB-D, and so I don't know. I could just see.
This is a problem of having such a weak standards body, right? Of having this USB standard not be rigorously enforced.
But I do kind of feel like the consumers could help in a way. Like if
consumers don't know, right? They think USB is USB. People didn't get USB 3 from regular USB.
I guess I mean us. If consumers like us start buying machines and accessories and I don't know. It seems like maybe then the industry would be motivated by sales.
Now you're limited to like Macs, high-end Macs.
Essentially where we have it now.
Where you have it, right.
So all things considered, the fan noise and the battery life, not a deal breaker for you on the Galago.
Not a deal breaker. What I would say is this is definitely, if you're in the market for a Linux laptop, take a look. However, I have a feeling next year's model, if they continue this line, will probably address most, if not all, of these problems.
Why don't you just use your iPad Pro for all this stuff? If I were you, that's what I would be doing. I would just say, screw it. I'm done with a laptop for a bit. I'm just going to use my iPad.
Oh, yeah, that's
it's a huge-ass screen. It's a 12-inch screen on that thing.
You know what? It just wouldn't work.
Why?
I can't run Bash. I can't run Docker.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Fair. I mean, that's true. You could remote desktop into like a instance, but if you're doing that kind of stuff, I meant like in bed.
The Hackintosh, right?
I was thinking like when you're at home in bed, or you're at home just banging something out like in a text editor. When you mentioned the noise problem when you were watching TV, that was really the use case I had in mind. Is why wouldn't you just use your iPad Pro and just leave the Galago plugged in somewhere?
Well, because the typing experience on an iPad Pro is terrible, even with the case.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yep. Yeah, and the Galago Pro does, like, System 76 has been working a long time to get their keyboards right, and
yeah,
I think a lot of that work has come to fruition in the Galago Pro.
Yeah, I think they've done a really good job with the keyboard.
Yeah, I did. That was my impression too. It was a good keyboard, pretty good trackpad, lots of good I/O overall, but it did feel like a Rev 1 product to me to a degree, with the fans and with the USB-C not charging, and the SIM port and the battery life. It felt like they were essentially entering into a new category, laptops for developers, and this was their first take on it. And if you're okay with a first take, because at the end of the day, it's still powerful as hell. It's still got a gorgeous screen, and it's got a good keyboard, right? So some of the essentials, depending on what is important to you, it's there. For me, for this generation, I'm sticking with my XPS 13. I already had one, so that's going to be my machine in this category for now. But I would definitely be willing to consider the next iteration of this, which I think will be a lot more competitive with the XPS 13.
Yeah, and I think competition will make this market better.
Yeah. And it's good to see System 76 in it. So we have more to get to. We're done talking hardware for a bit, I think, because you got to talk about the future. And you found this article, Why Isn't Agile Working? Which at first is like, oh, here we go again. And then I read it and I was like, holy shit, this guy is a genius. This John Cutler guy is a genius.
Oracle of Delphi over here, yeah.
Yeah, so I gotta tell you guys, buckle up. I guess maybe first though, before we get into DigitalOcean, should we talk about Hacktoberfest, because this is obviously DigitalOcean related.
Yeah, so if you want to do some open source and you want a free T-shirt from DO, go to their hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com and you can contribute to any open source project. I think you need to show, it's like 3 commits or something, and they will literally mail you a T-shirt.
Yeah. And if you're going to create a DigitalOcean account, why not apply our promo code CODERDIGITAL and get a $10 credit over at DigitalOcean.com? Boom! And they're a sponsor of ours, of course, and by doing that, you support the show. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code CODERDIGITAL. It's one word after you create your account. They have SSDs for all the systems you'll deploy. You can get started in seconds, and they have data centers all over the world. They have a beautiful interface. It's so beautiful. My whole body shook. It's beautiful. It's really good. I say it with a passion of someone who struggled with the worst interfaces ever. If you've ever worked in banking, you have an idea of what I'm talking about. There's some of the old systems from the 80s that we had to work with that it's really remarkable to see the kind of horsepower you can throw around in seconds with DigitalOcean. And I love when they roll out new stuff. Because it's always well done. It's always extremely well documented, and it's integrated simply. And the API is always updated to take advantage of it. Right now I'm talking about object storage. This is DigitalOcean's new Cadillac service. They call it Spaces. It's beautiful, simple, reliable object storage, and you can get a 2-month free trial over at DigitalOcean. So there's a lot going on. They got Hacktoberfest. Of course, they just got the great service, and then now Spaces. So go over to DigitalOcean.com, create your account, and then apply our promo code CODERDIGITAL. Then you just get a $10 credit too. You can try out Spaces for 2 months. It's remarkable. You can create a space in an instant. It's scalable. It's available as a standalone service if you just want to, I don't know, throw a link around. You know, if you're looking for something to just publicly send a file to somebody and you want it to expire, it's great for that. Or if you want to integrate it in with your project and programmatically create storage when you need it, it's brilliant. DigitalOcean.com. The whole thing's good. Go check it out and then use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program, and have fun with Hacktoberfest. Looks like a good way to get some swag and help out open source. I think that's a pretty big win-win for everybody. Free swag. Okay, so why Agile isn't working. I got to read a few parts of this. I wasn't going to go into a ton of this, but this is pretty good.
Do it.
First of all, he said, I was visiting a relative a couple years ago, and he said he was pissed. He said, I heard something like this. It was a sham. We changed the way we do everything. We brought in consultants, we hired these master project managers, and nothing worked. It made no difference. There's no accountability. All I get is excuses. And I think a lot of us have heard a version of that before. And he says there's a couple core concepts I kind of need to communicate here. And he draws some pictures, so I definitely recommend checking out the link in the show notes to get the picture or watch the video version. He says, first, if you look at lead time, the time from when you dream up an idea until it reaches customers, you'll notice that most of the time is spent waiting. You're just waiting around for stuff. 15% flow efficiency is normal. And normal for 15%, that's work time and lead time. That's crazy if you think about it. But what we focus on is just the relatively visible portion of the work, the small amount of time actually spent doing the job. The best companies in the world, he writes, hit 40%. The short story is to go faster, you need to address the waiting time. That really resonated with me, so then I kept reading. And I won't read this whole thing, but just a few more parts. Unplanned work and multitasking. This is something that I've been struggling with here at Jupiter Broadcasting. In fact, I've been struggling with even how to put words to it. I couldn't think about how to put words to it, to talk to you about it or talk about it on User Air. Like, I've been trying to conceptualize what the problem is, and he just nailed it. I'm experiencing this very moment. He says it's not uncommon to have teams paying 75% interest on a combination of unplanned work and task switching. 75% interest on a combination of unplanned work and task switching. Oh, yes. This happens to me all the time. I come in to do something and we have a technical problem on one of our broadcast machines, and that's what I end up fixing that day. It's overhead. It's overhead to getting work done. The team may not even be paying down the principal. And often, it's never tracked in the ticketing system. Oh, man. Most likely, the team complains about this, but it's ignored long enough, and they just accept the dismal reality of it. You have to address sources of unplanned work and quantify the economic impact of having a shared service. Like me, I am a shared service. Shared services make intuitive sense, but they often inspire a good deal of expensive pre-planning. That was really the meat of what hit me. There's other things in here about benefits of realization, but an unmanaged complexity. But that was the stuff, like the fact that you don't account for the unplanned work and task switching that always comes up when you're a shared resource or dealing with a shared resource or service. And that is always a big time suck. And then we only look at the time that is actually getting where we're actually doing the work, which ends up being the minority of the overall project time spent.
I have so many thoughts on this. I don't even know where to start.
Well, what do? Are you buying his premise? Because I was pretty clicked in. I thought it worked. I'm
pretty clicked in. I might phrase it differently, or maybe I might not call it waiting, because it really isn't waiting, right? I would call it busy work and, well, I would call it, some combination of busy work, ceremony, and waiting.
Yeah, waiting for decisions, ceremony, process. It could be, waiting for process. This has to be sent to this department or this decider, or waiting for these artists to submit back their concepts, and, that kind of stuff is just a lot of time spent doing nothing. You try to do other things in that time, obviously. You don't just sit around.
Right. I mean, the one that really hit me, actually, was the unplanned work section.
Yeah, me too.
And, unplanned can mean a lot of things, right? And what I'm finding is, I'm going to say a dirty word here, waterfall. Doing a little bit of architecture is not a bad thing. And that is actually extremely valuable for the customer, for you, and if it's your product, like with Alice, for us, with your product, right? What I found is, there was a lot of resistance for folks to want to pay or invest in that sort of thing. Like, even if it's an internal team. Oh, well, can't we just be agile, right? Just start coding from day one. And you can, but unless you're inheriting a rescue project, which I've done many times, I'm trying to do now, and it's very, very hard, especially if it's written in Swift. Never mind that last bit. You end up wasting a lot of effort. I mean, really, 10 to like 15 hours of just like pure architecture can save weeks of work.
Yeah.
And maybe this is me getting old and crotchety, but someone tells me, are you really telling me that you are unwilling to pay an invoice for, let's go high, let's say 15 hours of like just one architectural session, but because you need to see commits, right? But you're happy to pay for weeks and weeks and weeks of churn and throwing things out and confusion and, building in technical debt and system fragility, all these issues that come out of just pure, like, bad architecture. Is that sane?
Yeah, it is. It seems to be an unwinnable fight, though, because I think there's something about the protective nature of a business, and when you have a big group of people working together, and there is a lot on the line for each individual, but yet nothing on the line for everybody in a whole. I think this is just what happens. I think this is just the way they want results. Everybody's there to work. The cost of it isn't really. They say it's the number one driver, but it's really the number one driver for the owners. It's not the employees. It's not their number one driver, and so it's not really a cost thing, even though, depending on who you're talking to, might say it is. You know what I mean? Like, they're lying truly about what the motivations are because they're probably deceiving themselves to a degree.
So are they lying, or do they not get it, right? Like, I would almost say
they don't get the value of it. Otherwise,
right.
They would advocate for it because it would be better for the company, which would be better for them. But what they do know is results and status updates and development code being produced, and they do know the value of that.
See, I almost think of it differently, that Agile has trained people to, value tickets moving from left to right in Jira or some other Kanban board, and not like actual good architecture.
Right, yes.
Now, of course,
I agree.
If someone tries to sell you on like a 200-hour architecture session, that's obviously a scam, right? But, a day of architecture seems like super reasonable to me.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it is.
It just does.
Yeah, of course.
And, I mean, let's just jump into another thing, like the small, medium, large, right? Number 3 on his list here. Okay, so the amount of work has no bearing on the time to completion is his assertion. And I've also found that to be true because the amount of actual dev work is often not related, or sometimes inversely related, to the amount of political work to get the dev done. Mm-hmm. Do you have an InfoSec team that doesn't want to cooperate with you and give you like debug logs, which is something that had happened to me? So then you're like poking in the dark to try to find a bug that a simple, stack trace would probably point out in an hour or less.
So you're proposing that larger projects take no longer to complete than smaller projects?
Oh, so I'm talking tasks, right? Individual tasks. What I am saying is what he is proposing actually is that there is not necessarily a linear correlation between the size of the dev task and the amount of time it takes to accomplish that task.
Okay.
And what I would say is that that has very recently been my experience, because politics can get in the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And politics could be a lot of different things too. Politics can be like there's different departments within the business that they feel that their department needs to be better represented, etc. I had a project very much like that, where there was a process of working out which divisions deserve the most time and work, and it was 6 weeks of me attending meetings while they hashed that out with no work getting done. 6 weeks of meetings.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you horror stories. I mean, which I don't even want to go into too much detail, but I very recently had one that was unbelievable. So, a lot of this rings true. I mean, unmanaged complexity is one I would actually question a little bit, because what does that really mean, right?
I guess he's saying without managing the complexity of it or going back and refactoring code or automating aspects of it, then it's going to take longer and longer to implement new features each year. So even if your team remains the same size, having to go from 3 days to 6 weeks is not unheard of.
Just sounds like technical debt, right?
Yes. That's what I would.
You run up your Amex, and now everything is a lot more expensive.
Yep,
because you're paying all this interest.
Yeah.
And I think the key here, although this is where I diverge, he has his bullet point to be agile. You spend a good deal of money and energy on, doing the work that matters, automation, changing management culture, adjusting on how you fund an initiative, allocating resources, mapping value streams, and a look at shared services. I would actually say that order is not quite right.
Okay.
I would put automation, particularly deployment automation, at the top, because I've seen so many agile projects fall apart because there's like one dude who's like the deployment wizard.
Yes,
right?
And then he's gone or something.
Right. And it's December.
Wife has a baby. That was what happened to us. Wife had a baby, gone for a couple of weeks.
And now the business stakeholders have invested, whatever they've invested, and they can't get it deployed to production. Meanwhile, the PM on the vendor side is like, yo, we need to keep pushing this. Let's keep doing more work. And they're like, yeah. I mean, we've all been there, right?
Yep.
And of course, but then when you go back and say, listen, if we automate this deployment, if we bring in Docker, or we bring in Jenkins, or whatever it's going to be, people immediately cringe and say, well, we don't really want to automate the deployment. We really do want like direct database access. We don't want to go through your application level interface. Or actually, so you would be able to deploy without like consent?
So
we don't know.
This is where it's particularly hard for a consultant or a contractor, because in an IT department, you would just sort of do this stuff in the background. Like you would just sort of, we'll build it so it, our process is using automated deployment. They tell us to do it and we use that system. And you don't really have to get explicit permission there necessarily, depending on how you build it. Some circumstances vary. But with you have to propose like a solution where everything's detailed, and they get to go through this solution, this proposal, and they get to nitpick every little son of a bitch detail, from the deployment methodology to the color of the toolbar. And it is tedious. It's a whole nother level of tedium that I don't think corporate developers deal with as much. Would you agree?
See, I don't have a lot of experience in the inside of the corporate development, but I would say that your picture that you painted for consulting is pretty accurate. I mean, in the initial sales conversation, everybody's super down with automating deployments, right? But then you get down to brass tacks at the end of like actually working out the process once the contract's signed. And you get into things like, well, actually, so-and-so needs to sign off on every deployment.
Yeah.
So that needs to be a manual process. Or actually, we kind of do want to like manually edit whatever it is in the app, right? The database or whatever. It's got their little pet peeve. And then you really throw out a lot of the advantages of that stuff, and you end up in a situation where, okay, we're doing, big builds and big deployments again.
So rearranging his list out any more than that? I mean, because I got you off on a side change. I've been doing that today. I apologize. Just fired up about this topic. More than I thought I would be. But you were kind of restructuring the list a bit. And I know you kind of just you redid the top couple. Any other thoughts on this before we...
I would actually add something, and I think it goes into his value streams thing. Working in like monthly iterations and then coming back and saying, okay, what went well, what failed, what could we have done better, what was surprisingly easy that we thought was hard, and where do we go from here, is a quick way to, I think, for relatively, even on an internal product, right? This is what we're doing at Alice. We're pivoting her a little bit. We're doing some changes because, we did a monthly iteration and there are some things we'd like to change. Instead of doing like a giant quarterly release cycle, that's it, right? You do 1 month. From the consulting perspective, if you can't afford a month of your vendor's services, that means you probably can't afford consultants. So
true.
It's a small enough time frame that the risk is relatively low, but the output can be high enough that you can see real value.
Yeah. It's wise. That's wise, Mr. Dominic. You should offer these services like on a fee basis where you consult with people. Like
oh my God, if only people went to like themadbotter.com.
Now we turn to Mr. Dominic's crystal ball, and this is fascinating. My 20 years experience of software development methodologies, and it's incredible. This article is inspired by a book that I'm actually reading right now. I'm on chapter 6 of the book.
Building Pyramids.
I'm on chapter 6 of Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Really, really good book. Just started a couple of nights ago, and this article has been inspired by it. Have you read Sapiens?
I have not.
I recommend it.
Audible queue. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on Audible too. Yep, and I've liked it a lot so far. There's a couple of gruesome moments in there. So the first part I listened to with my son, and just the first like 2 chapters. I can't remember part of it, but then we stopped, and when I continued listening, they started talking about some stuff that probably wasn't kid safe. So the timing worked out. So it's not all kid safe, but at least the first few chapters. But it's very, very fascinating. Anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. But if you're looking for a book recommendation, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, I recommend it. The basic thesis of the book is that humans require collective fictions, quote unquote, so that we can collaborate in large numbers, like larger than 150 or so. Our brains are big enough to cope with that, like around that by default. That's hard. Let me reread that because that's hard to even understand. And I'm reading the book. The basic thesis of the book is that humans require collective fictions, like groups, like tribes, like either be a business or a tribe or whatever, so that we can collaborate in larger numbers than 150 or so that our brains are big enough to cope with that by default. All right, it's just written weird. Collective fictions are things that don't describe solid objects in the real world, but we can, like things we can see and touch, things like religion or nationalism, liberal democracy, or even the concept of a business. But we act like they do. And we easily forget that they're not actually things that really, truly exist. And that somehow leads into his thought about the process of software development, which is fascinating. What did you take from this part of it?
It's definitely interesting, right? There is a religious aspect to how people treat their methodologies.
So like the waterfall technique. So he started thinking about it in the terms of God was waterfall. That's heavy stuff there.
In the beginning, there was the document of record, and it was good. I'm sorry, what?
That's really fascinating. So I guess if you really wanted to go all in, you should read the book and then read this post. Then it gets to Agile. I started hearing the word Agile in 2003. I don't think I'd ever properly read up on it. Anyways, what do you think the next 20 years of software methodology will look like? That's really the thrust behind the post, as they say. What's your thrust for the next 20?
I think we're about to have I wouldn't call it a regression, but I would say a pulling back from Agile a little bit. Or a correction, maybe. I think Agile's actually gone insane.
Yeah, okay. It's not Agile. It's not Agile. What did that guy say? Don't blame Agile. Agile is worthless unless it serves a catalyst for continuous improvement. So there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, though, as automation sweeps through the rest of the economy, we're going to see a lot of it in development. And I think the areas that it's going to hit, just like it is in the rest of the economy, are going to be like the lower, I would say lower value to cost ratio stuff. So like automated QA, right? We're already seeing a lot of automated testing. I think we're going to see a lot more sophisticated automated like design QA, like matching the color, text codes and things.
Yeah, I like that. Hey, Mr. Dominic, speaking of continuous improvement, anything new over there at themadbouter.com? Anything going on? Any stories?
Well, we're going to have some stuff pretty new in, I would say, about a week.
Ooh, look at you teasing. Well, good. That's good. That's good. You know, I try to follow you on Twitter, but I don't even know what's going on with your Twitter feed anymore. It's a mess. So I just figured I'd just ask you on the show because that thing,
I know it.
That Twitter feed of yours,
it's active.
We got to talk about that. Maybe we'll do that in the future. We got to talk. We got to have like some sort of
bot that runs it during the day.
We got to have some sort of Twitter therapy, you and I, because it's no good. It's no good. It's no good. Was there anything else you want to mention this week, Mr. Dominic? Anywhere you want to send people, etc.?
Nope. Go to themadbouter.com and follow me at Dumanuko on Twitter.
Magic, right there. Concise. Did you ever end up getting that coffee? I mean, it is the end of the show now. I never heard you. I don't know. Doesn't look good. Go follow me. I'm at Chris LAS. Follow the network at Jupiter Signal. Find out when we're live at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And get in the discussion on the Reddit at coderradio.reddit.com. We often check that right before the show, so it's a good way to slip in a little feedback. We always appreciate that. And also, go check out the rest of the great shows on the network, like Linux Action News and User Air, where Mr. Dominic has guested from time to time over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you right back here next week. Hello, and welcome to Linux Action News, our weekly take on Linux and the open source world. This is episode 23, recorded on October 15th, 2017. I'm Chris.
And I'm Joe.
Hello, Joe. It's good to be with you again. We have so many things to get into, a good range of topics today. Let's start with one that affects a lot of us that use Steam under Linux, and that's sort of like hodgepodge, mismatched support for different games, and sometimes they rely on outdated libraries, and sometimes when you try to use native libraries, things don't work quite well. And we've just been waiting for somebody to come along and potentially solve this mess of a problem.
Well, Solus has been the go-to platform for a lot of Steam users on Linux, I understand, because Ikey's been really pushing the envelope in that area. And now, thanks to Snaps, it's getting a little bit easier to do that.
You mentioned Snaps. Let's talk about base Snaps. This is something new as of Snapd 2.28. I'm not an expert in this, but I'll reframe the conversation to give you a perspective. Let's say you created an application that, for whatever reason, really just runs on Fedora 25, and a use case comes up where you need to run that on Arch Linux. You can now create a snap of the application and a base snap of Fedora 25. That's sort of like a Fedora 25 runtime environment. Now, if you're on a system that doesn't have that runtime environment, you can have this application snap that requires that base. And it pulls it down and installs it, and the application runs as expected. But if you were to install that same snap on a Fedora 25 system, it wouldn't necessarily need that base snap. So they can be separate pieces. And what Solus is doing is they're creating the Linux Steam integration project using a strict Linux Stream integration intercept module, which sounds like a ninja move.
Yeah, and it means that every other distribution that's using Snaps can benefit from the work that Ikey and the rest of the Solus team have put in. And now it means that you know Steam is going to work 100% on any distro with Snaps.
So will developers end up targeting this? Who knows? It's early days right now. But initially, I can say this. This is doubling down on what Solus has been great at, fixing problems around Steam and then doing it in a way that solves it once and for all and makes it available for all Linux distributions. And I really want to underscore that point is both this and their previous Steam work feels like the type of design work that goes into this, the type of design work that makes this a problem solved for once type thing. And that's going to result in easier, better gameplay on Linux if this is successful. So that's why I think it's worth looking at if you haven't seen it yet. We'll have a link in the show notes. Go over to linuxactionnews.com/23, and you'll see it's one of our top links. Read about it, and you can get it going on your distribution now if you support Snaps, which you probably do.
Yeah, it's almost like Valve should have done this in the first place, but it's been left to the community, and the community has stepped up. So, yeah, well done, Ikey and Solus, for pushing that forward. So you mentioned Fedora in there. Well, Fedora Workstation 27 is going to have AAC support. Well, kind of. AAC is the modern replacement for MP3. No one's using MP3 anymore, right? Hang on, you're listening to one now. But if the Fraunhofer organization are to be believed, then MP3 is dead and AAC is the future. So I suppose it's a very good thing that Fedora is going to be supporting it. But I say kind of because it's not every single implementation of it, but at least some AAC files will now play going forward in Fedora.
My takeaway is that most common AAC files will be supported by Fedora. This is based on an implementation released by Google. And one of the things that Fedora is doing here that's kind of nice is they're also going to be releasing GStreamer plugins. So applications that use the GStreamer playback engine will just get AAC support once you go to Fedora 27. No additional work required. This change does not mean that you can package and ship any AAC implementation you want in Fedora, though. You will have to look into their specific implementation here.
Yeah, it's kind of future-proofing, isn't it? Because MP3 is still around for now, but it might not be forever.
They also teased, Joe, that there may be more other major quote-unquote codec announcements soon, so stay tuned.
Yeah, I wonder what's coming there.
I doubt it's anything really. I have to say at this point. I mean, we have MP3 and AAC. I think that pretty much covers all of the proprietary audio codecs, but maybe I'll be proven wrong.
Maybe it's video.
That would be very cool. That would be very cool.
All right, well, you have had all sorts of problems with GNOME in the studio, and people keep suggesting various replacements for it. And you have said to me that you want to have one desktop environment, one unified experience across all your machines. Well, how about Plasma 5.11?
Yeah, the new release by our friends over at KDE. Plasma 5.11 has a bunch of new features. Probably the most standout ones are the Settings app, and the most popular one is improved notifications, including notification history. I didn't realize how popular that was until I started getting emails about it. I like the new Task Manager. I think that's maybe my favorite new feature. And this release also includes the new Vault system, which, quote, allows users to encrypt open sets of documents in a secure and user-friendly way. So that might be something I have to play with as well.
And it lets you hide them away as well. So if someone comes to your machine, they don't even know those files are there necessarily.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, I think that is probably, I got to read up on how it's implemented. And I like so many things about the Plasma desktop, Joe, so many things about it, but yet it feels like more than what I need for my day-to-day desktop. And there's still some visual inconsistencies for me that I find to be distracting. And on top of that, I almost need, what I would be perfect is if somebody could rebase the Neon Projects desktop in this really perfectly set up environment and then lock it all down so I can't change it. Because otherwise I just sit there and fiddle with it all day long and I would never get any podcasting done, Joe.
Well, you know, there is such a thing as self-control where you just don't go into the settings and change things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've heard that before. I'm not familiar with it, but I've heard that before. So they have something sort of in play, I will say, for 5.12. And I think if they don't nail this, then they're going to miss the boat. And so I would encourage everybody who wants to see Plasma better on Wayland to get involved, because they're shooting for an awesome release on Wayland with Plasma 5.12. And the elephant in the room is that 5.12 is due to be the long-term support version of the Plasma desktop. So it's kind of important to nail the Wayland support on this one.
Yeah, it would have been kind of important to nail it pre that, you would have thought. Like Ubuntu are doing with 17.10, they're getting Wayland in there one release before the LTS.
You might think that.
Yeah, it's getting there slowly but surely. But as you say, this is very important for them. This, as the LTS, they need to get Wayland working properly. So it's no wonder that the KWin maintainer, Martin Flörser, I think, is put out this call to get people to test it and hack on it and contribute and just make sure that Wayland is working well, because we seem to be moving very rapidly towards a post-X world at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems to be a lot of the ducks, as they say, are getting lined up. But I do feel like this will be looked back on as an effort that was implemented too little, too late, because I feel one of the things we are learning very hard with Wayland right now is scale and use cases, like esoteric use cases, like edge cases, I guess would be the phrase, are really what make the difference. And until you have a lot of those, and until you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of those, you're not really testing Wayland. And so the sooner that these projects get this code into people's hands for testing, the more and more esoteric edge cases get pushed. And I was sitting in a room, not to keep going back to this, in New York at the Ubuntu rally, where they were pulling up the bug tracker for Wayland, and it's hitting like historical landmarkers for the Ubuntu project in number of bugs being submitted to the project in the entire history of Ubuntu, because they, by right now, just having people beta testing 17.10, have more people using Wayland than apparently have been ever using Wayland before. And they're discovering so many more bugs because of that. So it's quaint to suggest that a niche of the Plasma desktop users should try really hard to make Wayland support great in 5.12, and it's an admirable attempt. It is much too little, and it is much too late because of their small scale, they should have been testing this stuff maybe a year ago. But the ducks weren't in a row yet. So we will get what we will get, and that'll be the LTS.
Well, this week, KDE turned 21, if you can believe that. It's been around for that long. And looking back at the screenshots of the various versions of it, you can see it started out looking very much like old school Windows. And you can see the progression, and you can see, I think the leap from 4 to 5 was really a big step. And for me, pre-Plasma 5, it was not really relevant to me. Whereas looking at some of the early versions of that, and now it's maturing and we're getting towards this 5.12 LTS, it's really come into its own, and I've stopped hating it, put it that way.
Yeah, October 14th, 1996, 21 years ago. So now, if anyone ever asks you to define what does slow and steady pace mean, you can say 21 years of slowly but steadily getting there. linuxacademy.com/unplug. This is a platform to learn more about Linux and all this stuff that's going to make you money on Linux. If you need a new thing for your review, if you need something for your resume, or if you just want to challenge yourself, check out linuxacademy.com/unplugged. You go there, you sign up for a free 7-day trial, and you support the show. And within 7 days, you can poke around, try out some of the different courses. They have self-paced, in-depth video courses on every Linux, cloud, and DevOps topic. They have hands-on, scenario-based labs that give you real experience on real servers. You get to SSH in and use it like a real human being. And if you ever get stuck, speaking of humans, they got full-time instructors, actual humans. Not bots, not chat bots, real human instructors that are happy to advise and answer questions. They have course schedulers if you're busy. They got certification training if that's the route you're going. And they have a community stacked full of Jupiter Broadcasting members, as well as study guides, lesson audio, and personal notebooks that you can download and take with you offline, and iOS and Android apps. Maybe you're commuting, you're on the go, you're sitting in the passenger seat, you're on the bus, you're on the train. Use one of their on-the-go apps. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there, sign up for a free 7-day trial, and a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring Linux Action News. linuxacademy.com/unplugged.
One of the long-running problems on Linux has been updating firmware, and it has often meant having to boot into a Windows partition or some sort of DOS environment. But thanks to FWUpd, I don't know how you pronounce it, firmware update, basically, that is getting a lot easier in Linux, and they have reached the milestone of a 1.0 release.
This is one of those projects that really makes Linux feel like a full-fledged desktop citizen. You open up your software update, and right in there at the top, there's a firmware update. I remember when there was like a mistake or a vulnerability in the Intel microcode recently. I think that's what it was. There's so many 0 days these days, but I remember I opened up software update on my Dell XPS 13, and boom, there it was, right there, months, I think, before Windows had even had it. Now FWUpdate supports 72 different kinds of hardware, so from low-level firmware in your laptop to Logitech multi-receivers. And this is done through a combination of FWUpdate and the Linux Vendor Firmware Project, which is the interface that the companies work with to submit the firmware and get it distributed. And behind the scenes, it's all pretty easy stuff for them. It's even using like Microsoft CAB files to distribute the stuff. Like, they're making it as easy as possible for these vendors. And huge portions of the project have been contributed by Dell and other vendors. And version 1.0 represents a pretty big change. There's an ABI breakage. They've removed a lot of cruft, and they've rebuilt a lot of things, renamed things to the more appropriate naming scheme, all that kind of good stuff. But they're going to maintain the 0.9 version for quite a while. So if you're on current versions of Fedora, you're going to actually see Fedora ship 0.9 for a little while. Well, that's still being maintained by the project. So there are going to be 2 versions maintained by the project for a bit while they make this transition. Such a great project, Joe.
Yeah, and it's great to see that they are going to maintain 0.9, because rather than just abandoning that and going on with the new and shiny, they realize that that is just something that they have to do.
Yeah, they were able to do that without any user metrics, without doing deep data analysis on their users' activities, unlike other companies.
Other companies? What, like OnePlus?
Yeah. It's not really the FW Update is not really a company, but you get my gist.
Yeah. So OnePlus have been collecting way more data than they should have been from their users' phones, including IMEI numbers, MAC addresses, mobile network names, serial numbers, and potentially even a bit more than that. And okay, they were being sent back over HTTPS, which is kind of good because often these things will just be plain text, which is never a good thing. And you can opt out of it if you go into the settings, but on by default and some of the stuff you can't opt out from, it's not a good look for OnePlus. And it makes me feel very happy that the first thing I did when I bought my 3T was flash Lineage on it.
Good point. So this only affects the Oxygen OS that ships on these OnePlus devices. So if you've wiped it, then you're already away from this. But something that struck me about this entire situation is they said they're going to dial it back a bit, but it sounds like they're just going to dial back some of the more identifiable stuff and still collect a lot of metrics. Some of this stuff I don't have an issue with. When the phone reboots, when it updates, that makes sense to me. How often you run an app, when you wake it up, when you check the time, these types of metrics, I'm less and less comfortable with that. And I would like companies to start rethinking data collection because OnePlus's defense is we would never share this information. We would never sell this information. And my thinking is, what happens if you get compromised? What happens when you get bought?
Yeah.
What happens if in 2 years from now you come up with a new revenue idea and you create a new partnership and all of a sudden they get access to this data? That's what I think about. And I want them to consider that. And I guess maybe I'm asking too much, but if you can't give me a satisfactory answer, then don't collect the data. Just don't collect it.
Or have it be an option in the setup. Do you want to help us out by giving us these metrics and let people tick the box or at least untick it maybe, but don't have it on by default. And then only when you get busted for doing it, tell people how to turn it off.
Right. And doesn't it sound like they are going to update a few interface things to make it easier to opt out, and they will stop collecting telephone numbers, MAC addresses, and Wi-Fi information eventually, by the end of October, I think they said. So that's some improvement, yeah?
Well, for new phones that they sell, certainly. And
Yeah.
whether or not they'll do it for the old ones, let's hope so. But it just makes me think, as I said, I'm so glad that I didn't use Oxygen OS, even though I hear it's a little bit faster than Lineage on the 3T, but just not interested in it.
You know what we really need, Joe, is we need a phone that respects our privacy, a privacy-focused smartphone that can withstand the test of credibility by virtue of true community ownership and audibility of the code. We need a hero.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this for the first time ever then, the Purism Librem 5. They've done such a good job of promoting this. I cannot believe that anyone wouldn't know what it is, but I suppose we should explain it a little bit. So this is a crowd-funded 5-inch smartphone that is going to run proper GNU/Linux. It's going to have a CPU that is separate from the baseband, so it can run totally free software, and you can completely turn off the radio for it, the mobile connection, and it's going to be totally free software, at least in theory. And so they did this campaign, which most people thought, not a chance. $1.5 million, they'll never get there. But here we are, and they've done it. They've smashed through the $1.5 million. This thing is happening.
Yeah, and it came sort of in a surprising way. A couple of huge contributions there at the last moment. And as we record this episode right now, they've not only gone over their milestone, like what they wanted to achieve, but now they're going for stretch goals. They've raised $1.7 million, and they still have 8 days left to go. So that's 114.84% funded at this point.
But now the real hard part starts. They've only got 1.7, they might get to 2 million. That's not a lot of money to produce a smartphone from scratch, is it? And the OS that goes on it and the applications that run on that OS.
See, this is really what I'm concerned about, because it all seems like the hard part now. It seems like building the hardware is the hard part. It seems like creating an operating system that's actually usable on a touchscreen device is the hard part. Integrating matrix calling so that way it feels like a first-class phone call and text messaging experience feels like the hard part. And then figuring out a way to manufacture enough of these devices and ship them to the backers in a time that you have committed to, that seems like that could be maybe the hard part.
Well, except that they have given themselves till 2019 to ship it. So they have given themselves over a year, kind of 2 years, really. So I'm not necessarily worried about the timescale. I'm more worried about whether that money is going to stretch far enough to do the R&D as well as actually ship the product, because it's going to cost them at least like $200 per phone to make it, you would have thought, maybe even more than that. And then they've got to send it out. That's like another $20, whatever. And so really the amount of money that they've got to spend on the R&D is minimal.
That's a pretty good point. If you think about 2 years or so and building phones, especially your first batch, is going to be your most expensive run. Yeah, that 1.5 million or so, I guess now it's actually 1.7 million, is not that much money. Now, in the meantime, they may have a growing success with their laptop business. I just reviewed the Librem 15 in Linux Unplugged 218, and after a couple of attempts, they've now, I think, got a very competitive laptop on their hands on every sense of that word. And if that business begins to pick up, that might generate some revenue, and perhaps this crowdfunder ends up bridging the gap to get them between the 2 points. And that's a risky game, and I really hope they're successful, because the success and excitement around this crowdfunder demonstrates there at least is some appetite for this product in the market. Even if it's us geeks, there are geeks that have an appetite for this product.
Yeah, and also you would have thought that this will have probably generated them loads of free publicity for their laptops, because people will have gone to them for the phone, having heard about it, and then, oh, they do laptops too that are totally free software. And so that side of the business might well be doing better as a result of it. It's not something I'd really thought about, but perhaps that will subsidize the research and development on the phone.
Another market trend that could be in Purism's favor is more and more people are getting interested in privacy-respecting products, and that's an area where they have some traction and seem to be getting more. They recently made an announcement that they're signing up a deal with Monero, which is a mobile payment system. And when I say Monero, I think it's going to be a payment processor that supports Monero. But the takeaway message here is no doubt that the Monero project is well known for being the really, truly private cryptocurrency. It uses a different crypto algorithm than Bitcoin, and it is a truly decentralized, privacy-first cryptocurrency that you could exchange with Bitcoin or cash or whatever if you wanted to. But it's a good middleman exchange cryptocurrency because it's truly private respecting by default.
Yeah, it doesn't log who you are and how much you spent in the blockchain, which is very unusual and I think unique in terms of these cryptocurrencies. So it is very much like cash, unlike Bitcoin, where everything is totally traceable. And if you spend enough time digging through the blockchain, you can work out more or less who has sent what money to who.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Monero, not so much. So yeah, they seem to be making the right deals with the right people, don't they? GNOME, KDE, Matrix, and now Monero.
And the Monero community is pretty excited about it. I saw a lot of them looking at Purism laptops for the first time ever, thinking, well, now I can buy a piece of hardware with my hard-earned crypto. And the Monero is, if you were to peg it to the US dollar, it's somewhere around 100 US greenbacks right now.
Yeah, I looked earlier, it was kind of 70-ish.
Oh, really?
Oh, maybe that was £70. So yeah, about $100.
Pounds.
$100,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's in that scale, and that's, of course, all these different cryptocurrencies. You can buy other cryptocurrencies with each other, and so people can buy Monero with Bitcoin and then use the Monero for the actual purchase, which is probably a common use case, and it's helping sort of seed the Monero community. And now you have more products like these from Purism coming online, and it is getting noticed by people that really follow this deep privacy stuff. Now, I guess we just sit back and see what happens with the Librem 5 and see how many stretch goals they make. They do have some stretch goals they're going for.
Yeah, but the first stretch goal starts at 4 million, which I think is a little bit ambitious. So we're probably not going to actually see them. I think it's probably going to get to about 2 million.
I hope you're right, because even 2 million would be a good chunk of change, and the more the merrier, because now that it's been funded, we're all in at this point. We all want to see this happen, and there's a lot of excitement around it. And of course, there's one place you can go to find out when there is something new to report about this project. That's Linux Action News, linuxactionnews.com/subscribe for all the ways to get new episodes every single week.
And linuxactionnews.com/contact for ways to get in touch.
And you can support the whole network and future content at our Patreon page at patreon.com/JupiterSignal.
We'll be back next Monday with our weekly take on the latest Linux and open source news.
I'm at Chris LAS.
I'm at Joe Ressington.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See you later. You and 2 women in an apartment.
In an apartment.
In a relationship.
Correct.
You guys remember Project Loon, the balloons by Google to give internet to areas that don't normally have connectivity by putting these like weather balloons up in the sky?
Yeah, I think they were testing them out in New Zealand.
Yeah, and now they've gotten approval, it appears, to try them out in Puerto Rico. Now, it's no longer Google. They're now part of Alphabet, and don't make a mistake there. It's 2 different things.
That's important.
Yeah. But they have gotten permission, at least from the FCC, to fly for 6 months over Puerto Rico.
Well, that makes sense. You know, a lot of their didn't a lot of their infrastructure get knocked out?
Oh, yeah.
So it gives people a way to contact people.
Yeah, I guess the details aren't complete yet, but in the application of the FCC, Alphabet included emails and letters of recommendation from carriers in Puerto Rico, which are asking for Project Loon to come in and giving them permission to use their frequencies for disaster relief, too.
I guess in that case, why not? I'm sure maybe it's a little more complexity, but if it can help, that's...
Yeah.
It's nice to see the regulatory agencies make a quick change like this, too.
Yeah.
It gives, on Alphabet's side, it gives them a nice test case to see how much they can scale.
Yeah, I guess what Google, or I guess Alphabet is saying is, we kind of have more work than we would normally have, because this is sort of a moonshot project because we also have to get integrated with all of their local telcos. We've got some on board, but it's a lot of integration that would have to go there to get people on the actual network.
And I don't know if you guys know this, but telcos, not always up to the most modern specs. They don't move super fast.
Well, on the other hand, when you have hurricanes that knock everything out, maybe they are.
Maybe.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So each balloon can serve 5,000 square kilometers, so almost 2,000 square miles. And they'll float about 12.5 miles up in the sky.
Wow.
Yeah. So you might not even really be able to see them. You won't be able to see them. And they relay communications between ground stations that Google, or I guess, again, Alphabet, will have to go set up or modify.
Okay, so there's still cell towers on the ground.
Something, yeah.
But instead of ground-based infrastructure, the Loon balloons provide that.
Right. And they're working on some coordination of those ground stations right now. So that's like part of all of this is sort of up in the air. But they say once they're in place, it wouldn't be just data. It would also be voice communications as well. So this is a pretty big deal.
I kind of like how our planet is slowly becoming like this multi-layered internet thing. You got the traditional ground stuff, then you got the balloons that are going to be in the sky, and then apparently we're making a mesh network internet in space too.
Yeah. The planet's one big IoT device now.
Yeah. This is the cloud in the clouds.
DigitalOcean.com. Go to DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code of absolute power and authority. Here's the thing.
Chris,
what?
I got to stop you right here.
Okay, go ahead.
You got to check out these DigitalOcean spaces.
Dude, these spaces are spaces for days.
Yeah?
It's object storage, but like you've never seen it before. Scalable object storage for human beings. Yep. They should take that and run with it. I just came up with that. Right? That's good, right?
Oh, it's great.
But see, now you're being exclusionary. What if you want object storage for robots?
Or bots, actually, because they do have a really easy, perfectly straightforward API that bots could take advantage of. So you're right. I was excluding the robots. DigitalOcean.com, you can scale up infrastructure on demand or use their brand new beautiful, simple, reliable object storage, DigitalOcean.com. You create the account, you use the promo code Here's the Thing, then you get a $10 credit. Now, you're doing one of them traditional Linux boxes. Well, then I recommend you check out the 3 cents an hour system. You get 2 gigs of RAM, 2 CPUs, 40 gigabytes of SSD, and 3 terabytes of transfer. Plus, you can deploy an entire open source stack. That's my deployment sound. You can deploy that stack ready to go with a single click, or build a system from scratch, add storage and memory as you need it.
I got to give a shout out to those poor BSD guys, too. You can get nice cheap BSD
that's true.
droplets.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? Great way to play around with ZFS with their block storage. And they have so many new features these days, like network-level firewalls, alerting and monitoring performance metrics, and, of course, data centers all over the world. And then they've still managed to keep the dashboard really simple and straightforward and easy to use. You want a personal Linux box or one for production, or just messing around and learning? Go to DigitalOcean.com, create the account, and use our promo code Here's the Thing. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring User Error. DigitalOcean.com, promo code Here's the Thing. A couple of questions have come into the show this week, so we'll start with the follow-up one. #AskAir. Love the chat about online streaming services. What are your guys' follow-up thoughts about CBS Access Online and the others now that The Orville is out and Star Trek Discovery is out? I have some. I don't know if either of you guys have been dealing with any of these streaming services to get these shows. No? So I've been watching The Orville via YouTube TV using their DVR functionality. And I've actually ended up watching Star Trek Discovery via CBS Access app on my Android TV, which I thought for sure I would pay for the subscription and then promptly go pirate it. But I just haven't had time to do that. So, and it's been okay. You know, I'd say disappointedly so. The CBS All Access feels the most kludgy. I sign in, the page feels weird to sign in. There's all these options that I don't care about. All
Makes
these
you install
crap
Adobe
shows,
Flash.
and then you have to use Flash on the desktop.
No, really?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah. So that's a bit of a bummer.
I mean, at least it's not Silverlight.
Oh boy. That's,
Yeah.
that's a win.
But it is it's pretty good on the TV. You know, the app's not bad. The app's pretty usable and serviceable. And as long as I hit play and then let it pause and buffer for a bit, I can watch it without issue. So I wouldn't say. I think this is Disney is also just launched. They've announced they're gonna pull off of like a lot of the streaming services. And they're gonna launch their own streaming service. I think we're gonna go through a round of this as streaming technology becomes something that's more commonplace and more deliverable and more commoditized. More and more companies are gonna get the cockamamie idea that they should just roll their own streaming solution. So what CBS is doing, while I wish it was just put it all on Netflix for everyone, or put it all up on Google Play and YouTube and iTunes or whatever, or Amazon, they're not going to do that. Not for a little while. I think a lot of these companies are going to have to play this thing out, and they're going to have to just try, because it's a whole nother level of creative freedom, and it's a whole nother level of control. It's a whole nother level of like, well, it's sort of it's a whole nother level of continuation of something that has always happened around Star Trek. And I touched on this a little bit before, but Star Trek is famous for breaking the mold every time a new series launches. So when the original series launched, it's historic in the sense that it's one of the few series that was ever given a second pilot. The first pilot was not well received by the network, and so they asked for a second pilot. That doesn't happen. That's not something that happens.
No.
When Star Trek The Motion Picture was being created, it was actually originally starting out as a television show called Star Trek Phase 2. And then Star Wars happened, and the networks realized we need to go into movies. And so all of a sudden, Star Trek became a gateway for Paramount to get into sci-fi movies. When Star Trek The Next Generation launched, I'm almost done here. When Star Trek The Next Generation launched, it was Paramount's first attempt to go directly to the affiliates and sell television shows directly to affiliates and not be distributed through a network. And it was a huge success for them. So when Star Trek Voyager launched, they actually launched it with their own television network called UPN. And that was the premiere show, Voyager, for the UPN network. And so now here we are in 2017, and it's actually fairly appropriate that Star Trek Discovery is being used as the vehicle to launch CBS Access Online and really launch it. That's sort of almost in tradition now with Star Trek's history. The fans are used to drag them around to the different platforms that the studios now want to sort of infuse with life, and in some cases it's been successful. So this may be successful. As an end user right now, I just am sick and tired of going to 3 or 4 different places to get my stuff.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It feels like we're going so far backwards. Like instead of having, HTTP and HTML, we now like go to 5 different things. It's not that any of them, like, okay, maybe like the big players, Netflix, YouTube, like they might have some stuff that they do different. But all these little guy streamers, like they're pretty much doing the same thing. I wish there was some sort of standard or just open source framework. Like, sure, add whatever you need on top. Obviously, you need a little bit of DRM and authentication. Sure, that's fine. But if we could just standardize that, because having to learn,
why not just sell them? Just sell them through Amazon, Netflix, Google, Apple.
Yeah, I'll buy an episode. That's not the problem.
Yeah, just sell them.
I
Don't
think-
launch your own streaming service.
Yeah, I think a lot of the shows that aren't on CBS All Access, like a lot of the Disney stuff, even though they're starting their own streaming service, you can buy those.
I think that's changing, though. Once the streaming service launches, there was some announcement about them pulling out. But either way, my point is, it was not as bad as I expected. However, that said, it's still a little bit of a disappointment. You know what I mean? But the show, separate thing, the show is worth watching. So if you haven't checked it out yet, it is worth watching. All right.
I mean, when was the last time we had a new Star Trek released? Right.
Right,
This doesn't happen every day.
No, yeah. All right, yeah.
I'm taking the tactic of waiting until this half season ends and watching it all at once.
Yeah, I'd say if you're not in a rush, that's a really good
That
call.
is, yeah. Self-control is admirable over there, Beardsley.
Yeah, they've introduced a really interesting new sci-fi concept for travel, and I would really like to know where it's going. And I wish I could watch 3 or 4 episodes ahead now to know if they give you any info.
It's a lot easier to have Star Trek self-control because the last 2 series sucked.
Oh. All right, so hashtag Ask Air. What do we take for granted that's effing amazing if you really stop and think about it? I have one on the top of my head because it's my go-to.
The internet.
Sure.
Yeah, well, definitely.
Yeah. TCP/IP. Actually, you know what? But you know what? Actually, always is my go-to is burgers.
Yeah.
The burger, and this is not. I'm not the one that came up with this. The burger is a remarkable representation of a meal that we couldn't have even had 150 years ago, because it takes the grain to be milled and farmed for the bread, the cows to be raised and butchered and trimmed for the burger, the mustard seeds to be grown and smashed up, and the ketchup tomatoes to be like, all of this stuff has to be created individually and then packaged up in a way where it remains good and edible in transit, and then delivered to a place where you can get it and assemble it, or go to a restaurant and they assemble it. And none of it, like if the restaurant or you had to do all of that in totality on your own, you would never have burgers.
Well, you might have burgers like once a year because you slaughter a cow.
Yeah, after you've slaughtered the cow and you've harvested the mustard seed and you've harvested the tomatoes and you've made
But then you eat so many burgers, you get the meat sweats, and it's
then what if you want bacon? And what if you want onion? And what if you want mayonnaise? Are you gonna raise the pigs and the eggs?
But to have a burger, you're giving up your milk.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So if you think about it, the burger is really a remarkable convenience that we have today. And I don't know, like there's so many things in life that we are standing on the shoulders of so many layers of giants that we can't even conceptualize the amount of effort that goes behind every single thing that we consume today.
Well, not only that, but it's amazing in another way because like every step of that process you mentioned is us like cultivating and changing the animals and the plants to give maximum output.
Right.
Like there's not like milk cows roaming the planet.
Right. They don't just naturally always continuously produce milk. That's by our engineering in one method or another. Yeah, it is fascinating.
It's funny how those like giant supply chains can all just exist, and if you aren't a part of them, you don't see it.
Appreciate electricity for a moment. The next time you plug something in, and think about how that electricity is coming from one continuous connection from the source it is being generated or stored to the wall outlet. That is an unbreakable chain and if it ever does break, the current stops. And it is continuous from the outlet in your wall all the way back to where the power is coming from.
Pretty thin wire too. Like it's not a huge. Yes, it's like long and there's a lot of infrastructure, but it's amazing that works at all.
We just have that stuff run through everything these days.
We go from rushing water to you playing Race the Sun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like when the power's out, can you do anything? Okay, you have time to catch up on that book you wanted to read, but that 6 hours later,
right?
What do you do?
Right.
Well, that's when you have the other amazing invention we have is our mobile power generating.
I actually think literacy in a sense is up there too. Like the fact that we have a common dialogue in which we can exchange ideas is pretty empowering to the human race. And then
on
probably
on the flip side of that, I would like to say that it's kind of amazing that
also one of our biggest,
literacy rate is so low.
Yeah. Also air conditioning.
Yeah.
Thank the universe for air conditioning. When I was in New York, I've never had to do this before because I've been in places that were hotter. But when I was in New York, we would jump into stores just to cool down.
Wow.
Because it was so brutally hot and wet that you could walk for like 10 minutes and then there was no break. There's like no shade, so you just would have to stop. And I was so appreciative for air conditioning. It was really the modern marvel.
I was going to say washing machine because, like, let's be honest here. We're all probably lazy enough that it's hard enough to like actually go do your laundry when you have machines to do it. Would you ever do it if you had to go down to the river and like scrub things by hand? You'd buy new clothes,
Maybe.
Be naked. I don't know.
Or how about refrigeration?
Yeah. Really, all of these things that we like running water to our homes. I actually don't have that at the moment. So,
so you know what that's like.
Basically,
and it sucks.
I think our list is everything invented in the past 150 years.
Yeah. Well, and what's the biggest new food that's been discovered or created or cultivated by humans in the last 100 years?
Sous vide.
But no, like a new food. Like we might grow more avocados or we might grow more kale.
Well,
but like we're not like
the problem is
nothing's changed in the last 100 years.
The problem is we're not going to find any more new foods on this planet because all the things we find now are endangered, so we can't eat them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go to another planet and harvest their food.
We are about to have those non-browning apples.
That's true. That's
genetics. Not new, but
yeah. Okay. Patreon.com/Jupiter Signal. I don't know if you've heard the news, but we're working on some improvements to Linux Unplugged. We just talked about it in episode 218 of the Unplugged
I
program.
got my hammer and saw out, Chris.
Yeah. We're going to be doing some renovating, and we need our patron support. Put the beard to work at patreon.com/Jupiter Signal and help us bring Linux Unplugged up to a new level of competitiveness at the same time. Because that's what we do there, is we sort of use that funding to build runway for new shows, expansion of shows, or crazy trips to New York, something like that, where it always adds to the content. It creates like a sort of like a weight for Jupiter Broadcasting where we're pulled towards the audience. And that's one of the things I love about crowdfunding.
I think one of the things I like about JB too is that when we improve one show, we use stuff that will eventually probably improve all the shows.
Mm-hmm. Skills learned. We come back and we apply to all, which is kind of what we're in the middle of right now. And we could use your help. Patreon.com/Jupiter Signal. All right, so this next one's personally extremely hard for me, so please don't make fun of me. I was a geek growing up. #AskError. What is the most embarrassing belief you used to have? And I blame mine. I'll go mine. This is brutally honest. I blame sex ed. I blame sex ed. It wasn't something I came to on my own, but it was an impression that was given to me over a couple of years during different sex ed courses, and that was that girls don't like sex. Only boys like sex, and girls end up having sex to make boys happy or because you've compromised them in some way. And so I actually bought into that for a while and then would meet women after I got out of school who liked sex and thought, like, what is wrong with you? What does it matter? Like, you're not supposed to like, and then I would meet another one that liked, and I was like, so that's how we reproduce. Men and women both like sex. Oh, I see. That's how we keep banging it because they both sides want to do it. It's not just dudes who are horn dogs. You can have women who are horn dogs too. That's actually a thing that can exist.
Equal horn dog opportunity up in here.
Yeah, but when I was a kid, like back in middle school and early high school, later high school I figured this out, but early high school just totally misunderstood.
Well, there's definitely cultural elements there too, right? Like there's a lot of shame and other sort of purity associated with women, whereas like boys, like, well, you don't want kids, but keep it in your pants,
boys
kid. But there's
there's
an understanding of that.
Yeah,
fair or not.
But I felt so stupid because I missed a couple opportunities.
I was going to say you're hurting yourself here. Yeah.
So that was really, it's like, oh shit, what is? And then I would revisit stuff in my mind. I was like, oh, I totally made the wrong assumption there. I'm glad I figured it out, but boy, I felt dumb. So that would be mine. I don't know if you guys, if you have like the most embarrassing belief that you used to have that you no longer have.
I feel like I've said most of those on the show already.
Probably. Fine, I'll just hang myself out there. That's fine.
Well, on the flip side, Chris, you can think of it in a positive way. You had that belief, and because of that belief, you missed those opportunities. But because you missed those opportunities, you're where you are now, and you're happy.
It's deep, Rikai. That's super deep. All right. Hashtag Ask Air. I don't think I have one anymore. I think that was my last one. Dang. I was like, let's move on. You guys didn't have any answers, but
I'm trying to think of one. I could not though.
I know. Okay, so that's not all ours. So I know we have some more. But if you want to get your question into the show, I should mention right now, tweet us. Just any tweet. You don't have to tweet us at anything specifically. Just put your tweet out there and then do hashtag Ask Error. And you can also drop that in Telegram or Discord, and we will try to grab them. And then we collate your questions, and we use them as fodder here on this show because often you guys come up with things.
There's a great big machine. It combines them, manipulates them.
Using machine learning and artificial intelligence with a dynamic training set. Last.ting.com. What is Ting? It's a smarter way to do mobile. Last.ting.com is where you go. For wireless, where you pay for what you use, nationwide coverage, no contracts, no early termination fees, no quote-unquote service commitments. You just pay for what you use. Minutes, messages, and megabytes. Whatever you use, boom. That's what you pay for. Do you get it? It's simple.
Wait, do I have to pay for what you use?
No, what you use.
Oh, that's perfect.
I know.
Hey, Chris, you might actually see my phone bill be above $6 a month.
Oh, yeah?
I've actually been making some phone calls on Ting.
I'll prepare myself for this. Yeah, so it's $6 for the line, and then just whatever you use on top of that. Normally, Beardsley here's on the Wi-Fi. So am I. I'm a Wi-Fi fiend. That's what we call it. Wi-Fi fiend. I'm part of the Wi-Fi squad. I came up with that. They can run with that. Obviously,
You've got a sweatshirt,
I'm gonna
a badge.
I wouldn't be surprised if I have wireless cancer. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, okay, very good. Now, Ting has devices that you can buy directly, or you can bring your own device. And I'm just going to put a mention out there. You like yourself the headphone port? Maybe you're a bit of a Samsung skeptic, but you want to play in the Android field. Friends, good news. The LG G6 is now in stock over at Ting. But of course, if you have a CDMA or a GSM device, you can likely bring it to Ting. Just check their BYOD page. Just go to last.ting.com to get started and get $25 off a device.
You know what, Chris? I'm going to hazard a guess.
Go ahead.
This is not confirmed. I'm going to guess that the recently funded Librem 5 will be able to be used on Ting.
Yeah, they're pretty, Ting will just sell you a SIM card. They're pretty easy about that kind of thing. I love it.
As long as it's got the right bands, you're good.
That's all you need. Last.ting.com. All right. Okay, Beardsley, I've asked a few. Do you have a couple you want to toss my way? Let's see if we can embarrass me some more.
Well, first, there is one from the Discord.
Okay.
If you could go back in time and give somebody one electronic device from today in an attempt to boost technological advancement, knowing that whatever you give them will shape the direction of tech in general, what would you give them?
You'd have to get it just right. Because if you can't say a smartphone.
That's too magic.
And it doesn't have any. There's no supporting services. Right. And Emacs, you'd have to have. You'd have to give them a computer, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if you didn't have the supporting services of a smartphone, though, it would still be a handheld computer.
Yeah. Yeah, but I feel like a Raspberry Pi might be actually more useful than like a smartphone.
Yeah.
Because Raspberry Pi, you can see how it works. You could install software on it. The only problem is you wouldn't have HDMI. So you'd have to come back with like an HDMI to VGA adapter. Because it depends on how far back you're going. But that would be the tricky part, is how do they get online, all of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe like a video player and a big library.
Yeah.
I was going to say or like a giant encyclopedia, or like here's the science we know.
What about like Wikipedia or YouTube?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Like on a huge offline data set. What about that? What were you going to say, Beard?
Well, they said they were thinking of something like a ThinkPad to push forward laptops with a focus on modularity, or an iPhone to push smartphones with a focus on thinness and ease of use.
Did you ever see the episode of Star Trek Voyager where aliens crash on the planet and they basically bring microchip technology to Earth?
Yeah.
And this guy uses it to advance his company?
Yeah, wasn't that actually the Ferengi?
No, there was a Ferengi. I'm thinking of this one. It's in California, and they go back to the 90s, and this guy gets a microchip, and
it's where the doctor's mobile emitter comes from.
Yes, yep, exactly. Yes, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
So this is what I'm picturing when we talk about this, and I think a laptop is the way to go. The more I think about it, not a phone, not a Raspberry Pi.
What about a graphing calculator, so that technology stagnates forever and never advances, because that's how they work.
A sabotage maneuver.
Yeah.
But by doing so, we avoid like the techno dystopia that we are hurling towards.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So it's like you stunt the growth of our technology.
They get some. They're not using abacuses anymore,
right.
but
you save us at the right moment.
Yeah, they'll be on those black and white tiny screens for years.
What if that actually happened? What if that really had happened? Would we really be that much worse off? I don't think we would be. We wouldn't have as much entertainment options as we have now, but I think that actually maybe be a good thing.
Right. I mean, it's a fair question. Are we happier now than
we wouldn't
simpler times?
All access.
We wouldn't have echoes, and we wouldn't have voice assistants, and we wouldn't have smartphones.
Podcasts.
Maybe not, but you would have pirate radio.
Yeah.
You would have self-published magazines still.
Some
so there would
tapes.
still be independent media of some form. I almost wonder if things wouldn't. I'm sure that must be the curmudgeon in me coming out, because the options and new things that connectivity gives us are truly changing humanity.
You're sounding a little bit too much like Noah.
Yeah, but I do wonder, like if Wes could have been successful. It would be...
who's to say I won't yet, my friends?
That's true. That's true. Okay, that was a good one. I like that. Do you have any closures on that?
Yeah, I want to take a different tack at answering it. Technology doesn't necessarily mean hardware. So what if we brought like the Linux kernel back to the 50s?
Whoa. So by doing that, you would be bringing, assuming they knew what to do with it, you would be bringing concepts of virtualization, networking, memory management, file systems that would be years beyond anything they'd ever seen.
Yeah.
But you would have to have a way so it couldn't just be the kernel. It'd have to, again, be like a laptop running the Linux kernel.
I don't know. I feel like
open source
or just
would
a
be
big
the thing.
printout.
That would be the
microfiche. I think that was popular back then.
Sure. But if you were going to, like, whatever you do, whatever you bring back, make it open source. Because if you think about it, they're going to need all of the code to go through that and deconstruct how that thing works. And if it's something closed proprietary, that's going to be way less useful.
Bring back an entire distro. Yeah. So they can just reverse engineer it, essentially.
Do you remember Endless? We talked to Endless, and they're doing, like, everything is, like, preloaded offline. It's like a Linux distro where Wikipedia and a lot of website content's already offline. That would be the thing. Yeah. That would be it. Imagine if Linux had gotten started in the 50s or 60s, and even if there was nothing to run it on, by the time the technology caught up, and it may have encouraged people to build faster because they knew what to build towards. They might have known what the goal was to get to. Jesus, it would be unstoppable.
Yeah, if you took back like a distro, you would get so much stuff. You would have like a super advanced version of C.
Well, and GPL would be the de facto standard. Like you would be odd not to be GPL licensed.
See, I was thinking kind of the reverse. Like if we took FreeBSD 11 and just plopped it on Linus's desk back when he was a student. Like, here you go. This is what you wanted. Runs on 386, man. Have at it.
That's a dark future.
And Wes sabotages the cloud. There was no cloud.
Nope. Well, because it's all in jails. It's fine.
I like this. You are a rogue element today, Wes.
On the other hand, everything would be on ZFS.
That's
okay. Yeah.
Okay. Damn it. All right. That was one submitted by Discord. Do we have any more? I'm good. These are good ones this week.
I got
Thank you guys.
I don't know if this is good or not, but it caught my eye. What is something that is acceptable if you are unattractive, but not if you are attractive, or the reverse of that?
Oh, I like that. So something that is acceptable.
I don't know which way is better, but some permutation.
I notice people who are attractive tend to be flirtier, just more openly flirtier. Like especially people in like the service industry, baristas or something like that. Boy, I gotta mold that. Do you have like an example, something that's acceptable when you're a little more attractive versus something that's?
I was trying to think about the opposite actually. Like, what can you get away with if you're unattractive but not attractive?
Well, I from personal experience, I can say sometimes like you might have somebody that gives like a public talk, and then afterwards an attractive female will come up and flirt a little more than she might have if you were unattractive. Is potentially that could be something that happens. Whereas if you were like up there like a monster, she might have just walked out afterwards. Theoretically, if you were this person.
No, I guess it depends on how much money you're making.
Yeah, that is a good point. I feel like it's mostly social stuff. I feel like it's mostly social interactions.
Yeah, definitely.
And maybe certain like social graces people might be willing to extend you. Stuff that's totally unfair and not really.
Stuff that might get you inroads in certain places.
Yeah. But that's a good one. I'd like to hear the audiences on that one.
I would too.
I feel like we're missing a good one on that. So you can also respond with hashtag AskAir. Just make it clear that you're not asking us something, that you're responding, because people do send in feedback with that too. All right, do we have any others for the segment?
There's another from Discord.
Okay, bring it in.
Asking, what are some of the most eye-rolling and head-smacking instances of PEBCAC that you've ever experienced over the years? Either relating to yourself or someone else.
Well, probably my favorite is when I was first getting into IT, a big part of what I was doing was teaching adults that were much older than me how to use mice. Adults that are now about my age.
Chris.
God. But yeah, they had no idea how to use the mouse, no idea between right, left click. They didn't know what hand to put it in. And I had to instruct these.
It goes in the pants, obviously.
How many of those people use the mouse upside down?
It happened. It definitely did happen. And so I was probably 19, 20, and teaching these 35, 40, 45-year-olds how to use a mouse. And they weren't super receptive to some kid teaching them how to use this thing to do their job. And so that was probably the most frustrating thing, because they not only did they not like it because they were used to DOS systems, but they didn't like that it was coming from a kid. And so when I would have to be like, well, you're right clicking. And I wouldn't say it like mean. I'd just be like, oh no, there's 2 mouse buttons here, and you have to make sure that they would not.
Well, the solution there, Chris, you just put them on a Mac, single button.
Legitimately, the solution was I redeployed Solitaire via group policy and let people start playing Solitaire, and that fixed the problems.
Boom,
that was
done. And nothing got done ever again.
Video games solve everything.
So for yourself, is it a self-inflicted wound, or do you have like a tech support
I actually can't think of one right now.
Oh, there must be some with all the people you've helped with tech support issues. There must be some. I bet there's even some just with Noah.
I feel like maybe probably.
Probably a Noah.
I feel like I've been so traumatized that I've blocked them all out.
Yeah. You get stuck doing tech support stuff.
I've certainly done plenty of it. Someone just the other day was in charge of administrating a system, trying to give access to it for a new hire or vendor or something. Instead of making them a new account, they created a copy of their own account that somehow shadowed them. So they made themselves a new account that they did not have access to, could not log into, and then could no longer log into their own account.
Oh, jeez.
Yes.
That's like.
And of course, like so many people who just they have no idea how like a file system works or what that conception is. I'm not sure iOS has helped with that very much for people who are like mobile tablet first. And then so like how many people have you seen just they don't know where their files are, they don't know where they've saved them. You're like, it's just it's right there. Or they think they're saving them to their USB drive and they're not.
Let me ask you guys this legitimately, because that is a problem that honestly I thought was understandable back when I was teaching people how to use mice. And I really legitimately thought that by now we would understand what a file system is. We would understand that we should be saving our files in our home directory. There's a documents folder, a music folder, a downloads folder. And with all the love in the world, my own mother, who is a graphic artist by trade, works on the computer all day when she's doing that.
Can I pause you, Chris? Mm-hmm. How clean is her desktop? Like the desktop screen.
It tends to be a workspace. It tends to be very cluttered, and then she tends to have everything in the root of her home directory. Mm-hmm. Everything's just in the root. Lots of folders, lots of files with crazy characters.
That way it's all alphabetized, and you can just go down the list.
And then every now and then, like I'll go to her hard drive. I'll go like dig around her hard drive, and I'll just find like some folder on the root directory outside. Like where somehow she's made a folder in her root directory, and she's got a bunch of stuff in there, and so it's outside the backup scheme. And my mom is a smart woman, and she uses the computer to do her job, and yet she has still, after, I don't know, like 25 years, not been bothered to learn what the file system is.
I think that's I mean, there may be a lot of reasons for it, but my father is a self-affirmed Luddite, so he was kind of in a similar position. He worked in retail book buying and selling, so he used his computer to like order, trade, books from publishers, that kind of thing. He could use it as a tool just fine, but wasn't going beyond email. Now he wasn't going above and beyond. And having some conversations with him, teaching a little bit about the terminal, command line. There's a lot of people who just like they never got a fundamentals of computing or working with it, and like
they had to jump into the deep end.
Like, has anyone? I mean, I don't know about your mom, but in general, like I think there's some people that like just showing a file system tree, or like at some point in their early learning, a couple exercises where they have to go retrieve a file.
Some people are receptive to that.
Yes, not everyone.
Especially like when you're trying to teach people how to save to like the network drives in a corporate environment, that's where they're more receptive to it.
Yeah.
But I find that they're less receptive when it's their own personal machines. And then they just don't give two Fs.
If they don't want to be bothered with it.
And so my question to you guys is, for all intents and purposes, from a user perspective, is it time for the file system to go away? Like, obviously, it's still there on the back end. That's how the operating system will manage files. But does iOS and Android, if you use it in default mode, do they have it right? Is it time for the file system to go away and just for applications to be aware of what applications can open what and send files around and to present the files in a way that doesn't matter where you store them, what folder they're in, if they're in the right spot to be backed up, like the system just manages all of that. Really, it seems like if you were going to design a computer system today, that's how you would design it. You wouldn't even let the users screw up the file system because it's too perfect, it's too important.
No, I don't agree. I find that when I use Android, I find myself getting frustrated a lot and installing like third-party file managers because
Do you?
Because I'm looking for, certain files and you can only access them via certain apps, and then those apps only have the ability to send to certain other apps. Sometimes I just want a file that I can take and put where I want it.
Yeah. So I think there is merit in a reduced complexity interaction, or standards, or shareability, because I think like maybe the notion of a file or an object, yes, tied in with cloud storage so that it's always there, yes.
Right.
But I think what Beard is hitting, and I've run into that many times too, without an escape hatch or a more general sort of like maybe it's not a file system, but maybe you just have one flat folder of things, and like I can put that there. I know then I can tell VLC to open it.
Yep. I got to say, me too. One of the reasons why at the end of the day, when nothing else works, I always go back to Kodi is because I know I can hook up a USB stick to my Android TV. I can launch Kodi. I can browse the file system, and I can play the file. So I'm 100% on board with you guys. But, I look at the situation we're facing, and we are not the majority. Unfortunately, the way we use computers does not seem to drive the way that computers are built anymore.
Do you think that you're just maybe being overly critical of how people arrange their files? Because I feel
maybe.
I feel like
I feel like they're already trying to. I feel like it's coming, Rikai. I feel like this is coming, and the next major commercial desktop OS will do away with the file browser.
You mean TrueOS?
No, I mean like if Mac OS reboots as an ARM platform or Windows 11 launches or something like that. Like the next commercial major OS. Well, look at Chrome OS, really.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because where do you blur the line between cloud storage and local storage when everything's cached and synced? And you're not going to have directories and files on cloud storage providers, on your Google Drives, your iClouds, your Dropboxes. You will get representations of them, but they're really database entries that they're representing as a file system.
Yeah, exactly. And especially like where you want more, like it won't be so strict, right? We'll get some of those things we want, like tagged, be able to view like multiple files in one folder type view.
Yeah. I think that's the way it's going, is more like what your Google Drive looks like and less like what your file system looks like.
You know what? I actually kind of hate that.
Yeah.
Like for example, LAN is given to me via Google Drive.
Yeah.
I cannot for the life of me figure out how to find the LAN folder unless I use the search.
I bookmark it. That's what I do. And everything's a URL. So that's the plus side, is you can bookmark the URL, but that's where we're going. We're going to a future where files are all URLs.
Yeah.
And, Whew. I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. That's what I'm going to be. I'll be living with my Linux.
Yeah, you can pry it out of our cold, dead hands.
I kind of relate to the people that just scatter their files everywhere, because that's exactly what I do.
Really?
Yeah.
You monster.
Why? I know where everything is.
You keep it in your home directory, right?
No, it's all over the place.
No, like you got it like on your C drive, on the root of your C drive.
Yeah, I have like
/user just
animal. Really?
Why is the root of the drive this sanctuary?
I'm not saying I don't put stuff on the root of my drive, but like my data goes in my home directory, and like what I do is I make home directory my root. So I have a bin folder in my home directory, I have a log folder in my home directory, and anything I install, I make it right to there, and I keep it all there, so that way I can wipe my OS and I just have my home directory with all my stuff.
Well, first of all, the problem with Windows is there is no home directory.
It's just documents and settings and whatever
which is like this weird virtual folder that doesn't actually exist on the file system.
Yeah, I don't understand.
but like I have tons of things in the root directory because it's just another directory. You just put stuff where you think you'll remember it. Where it just makes sense to me.
Yeah. I as long as you know where it's all at, that's what matters.
Exactly.
Because you can get to it, and then you can back it up.
Definitely matters more like if you're in a shared user environment. If it's just your machine, then like,
that's where some of my bias comes from, is years and years of setting up shared user directories and network drives. Yeah. Hey-o.
All right, I got a couple.
Really, dude?
I got a couple options.
I like this. No, it's good. Keep them coming.
Okay. This one's maybe downturn. We don't want to do it. I don't know. What disturbs you the most about yourself? That could also be like your biggest flaw or something you're working on right now.
Oh man.
The other one, which is like, again, you could take it one of either way. What popular trend needs to end, or what societal norm should make a comeback?
Jeez, those are three really good ones. Well, okay, so let's start with the first one. The first one was
what disturbs you the most about yourself?
Wow.
Recently, my willingness to take risks.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I feel like I may be taking far too many risks.
You bad boy, Recap.
Yeah, look at you. That's pretty impressive. That's like a good problem. I mean, until it bites you or you have a terrible thing, which is always possible.
Yeah, that's why it's terrifying, because I'm sure it's gonna bite me in the ass at some point.
Yeah. What about you, Wes? You got anything that?
Yeah, well, I think mine is I don't know that it's right now. I'm doing okay at it, but in general, I have a pretty good default happy state, and so it's pretty easy for me to be okay with what's going on. So while in general I do like to pursue bigger and better things, improve myself, all of those things, it's pretty, even if what I'm doing sucks, I will be happy, and it can be a very dangerous trap.
I see what you're saying there. So it's easy to sort of stagnate a bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you give me a cheap Linux laptop, a TV, some books.
Coffee.
All right, I'm fine. Yeah, some coffee. Yeah, naturally.
I think the thing that scares me about myself the most is sometimes I am laying the groundwork for something that's going to fuck me so hard down the road, and I have no idea at the time that I'm doing it. And it's like, it seems like a great idea, or it seems like the right person to hire, or it seems like the perfect thing to do, or the right thing to buy, or the right move to make, or whatever it could be. Insert your random ass thing here. I have no idea at the time of knowing if this isn't the very thing that's going to blow up, or maybe some partnership with a friend at some point, or something like, you never really know. It's just any of these things at some point can be like the very thing that ends up being the thorn in your side that steals momentum from your progress.
I may or may not see like 3 or 4 of those things in this room.
Are you looking at that GNOME desktop right now?
A little bit.
Damn it. That was a good one. Okay, so there was a second one there. Boy, these are good this week. I'm liking this.
What popular trend needs to end immediately, and what societal norm should make a comeback?
Okay, so the popular trend one in Washington that I feel like...
Washington needs to end?
No, there's one in Washington that's... We are so hung up on the Seahawks here. 12 everything.
Yes.
The 13th fan or whatever the hell, like 12th fan, I guess. It's just everywhere. It's people have flags on their vehicles. It's every business. Do you agree? Like it's super
Tons
intense.
of people at my office wear jerseys, which I don't care. Like dress what you want. I'm not a stickler for dress. It's
starting to feel tribal. And it's the same thing. It's the same kind of buttons that scare me, like when we have a terrorist attack or a mass shooting, and then people lose their common sense shit, and we pass things like the Patriot Act, and it's like, holy shit! How did the land of the home and the brave, and in a country with a constitution pass the Patriot Act? Oh, well, we were scared shitless. We did something that we were very scared. If something happened, we were very scared, so we made a crazy step. It's the same thing with like this allegiance to a sports team that is a gimmick to sell you stuff.
Well, just think about it. Like, there's actual news articles about how when certain sports teams lose, the people from the stadium go and they friggin' riot and they destroy things.
I say that, by the way, wishing I liked sports ball a lot more, because I feel like that'd be a fun thing to do. What about you? What do you think about a societal norm that needs to change?
I think there needs to be no more
trend,
hipsters.
I guess trend.
No more hipsters, Chris.
There will no longer be any hipsters as soon as people stop defining people as hipsters. It's as simple as that.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, but the people that used to be hipsters will still exist.
Wow. Okay, and then there was a third one there. What was it? The third one was...
What societal norm should make a comeback?
Yeah, so that was the trend, societal norm that should make a comeback.
Yeah.
A comeback.
Now, can you define societal norm?
I got one.
I think trend, I think it's pretty open. I was just going to say, I wish we would all wear more hats. Hats are great. They're a lot of fun.
Call, dude.
But you kind of stand out now. Not that that's bad, but you know what I mean? Like, there's not common knowledge about hats. It's not part of the culture, really.
Right. There's
baseball caps.
There's no hat culture in Seattle. There's a little more hat culture in New York, I noticed.
The South has a little more. Yeah.
But nothing here. And the thing is, it rains all the time here.
So, being a Washington transplant, I missed the original wave of this. Can we bring back grunge music?
Oh, yeah?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you're bringing back flannel too. So
I mean, did it ever leave?
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. I suppose
Just
not.
stuck there in the crevices and the dark places of the city.
You know what I would like to see as a trend that comes back? This could never happen unless we had some sort of huge collapse. But what I would like to see is when my grandpa was growing up, he described about how essentially the town was self-sustaining. Like the town of Aberdeen, Washington, could be lifted up and on its own island, and it would still function essentially the same way it functioned here in the middle of Washington, because they had local farmers, they had local teachers, everybody. There was just sort of this self-sustaining small a group of small businesses, and of course you had a plant which was a major employer, and everybody knew each other, and so you didn't have the kind of acts of horrible violence that we have now. And you didn't have the disassociation that people have with everyone around them. And you didn't have the sort of passive-aggressive, awkward interactions that people have on the streets when they bump into each other accidentally. Because everybody was all in. You had to participate in the total collective. And so by doing so, everybody was sort of being part of the same group. They were all part of the same common collective. And it made for a real true community, one that supported each other. And I know that sounds sort of out there and whatnot, but it just seems ridiculous with technology that we have where you could hyper-localize social networks. And you see it spring up a little bit. Like Facebook has these community buy nothing pages, and where there's a little bit of this beginning to happen, where social network with location and whatnot can bring groups together. But it feels like instead of technology separating people, it could be enabling people, especially mobile technology, and we've just not seen it happen yet. And so instead, it's a worldwide conversation constantly about crazy-ass shit that Trump says, or the stupid-ass way that a celebrity did something, or this conversation that we're having is so detached from what's actually in our local lives and impacting us day to day where we live, that I think we have a total lack of sense of community. And if we could localize that a bit more, if we could use technology to expose what's going on around us and connect people, I think we'd have stronger communities, and I think we'd have less horrible violent outbreaks. And I think people by nature are social animals that are designed to be in packs, and when these connections are stronger, people tend to be emotionally healthier, families tend to be stronger, and divisive issues like race and gender and sexual orientation fade away, and class differences fade away, and a community infrastructure is created in its place, and I think people would be a lot happier. But what happened, and that seems to be a trend that we're very far away from actually reversing at this point, because the conversation seems to be getting wider and more global and more divisive all the time.
You know what's interesting? We kind of did have that at a point back when AOL was around, because they had like the local community chats.
Reddit can do it. Like there's a Seattle subreddit, which is not bad, and there's other subreddits for other cities, but
well, the problem is like, you have to know that exists and go there.
Yeah.
And you have to seek it out, too.
It'd be nice if you could get like some kind of ISP supplied landing page for your local community or something.
Like a news group
based
of some
on
kind.
your address.
Like some sort of Usenet.
So, I feel like all of us are on some level going through some kind of stuff right now. So, what is currently your biggest problem in life right now?
Oh, boy.
That is a weighty question.
Do you want a top 5 list or just the top one? Just the top one?
Top 5's fine if you think you can get through them all pretty quick.
No, I won't do that. I was just kidding. Probably money, because all of the other things like I need new tires, I need new brakes, I need work done on my truck, I need to turn water on at the junkyard. All these things cost money, and if I had a little more money, I could probably get more things done. I feel like I have a lot of other problems, but that's the one that seems to be the most stressing me right now,
and may cause a lot of the other problems.
Yeah. I'm getting worried. I'm getting worried about. I've been putting off when I bought my truck. It was starting to need new tires, and that was 2 years ago. So I've been putting it off for a long time because truck tires are expensive.
And then those things come due, and you're like, ugh.
But now, like, I got pieces coming off, like the outside of the tire, like little pieces of rubber are coming off. I'm like, okay. Yep.
It is time.
I'm one of those people now who has tires that are actually falling apart. Okay, so I'm going to go Thursday. I'm going in to get a quote to see how much it's going to cost. I'm not looking forward to that. So,
No.
yeah, that's a big problem right now for me is trying to increase revenue in a way that doesn't mean like adding a whole bunch of sponsors or creating clickbait content.
This is brought to you by Jim's Tire Service, though, so FYI.
Or also needing to hire someone else to do these additional things, which will actually lower the revenue.
Right, exactly. So I know, Wes, when I think of you, I think, man, some days you seem like you're so busy. Like, at least with us, you're podcasting all the time these days. You're living down in Seattle. You got the job.
Yeah.
What's your problem? What's the pain of Wes paying?
Time is definitely a big one. There's just a lot going on. Time and focus. I feel like I'm interested in like 1,000 different things right now, several of which I'm very passionate about. My life is filled with mostly good things, but also some things that are less passionate about or just take up a lot of time. So I'm really trying to figure out like what are the essentials, what do I actually need, and will like make me the most happy and give the best output to the world.
It's a good thing to be thinking about.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. I'm thankful for that.
There can be a stage where you're like, okay, well, these are the things I'm still having to do, and I'm really sick and tired of doing these things, and these can bring me down, and I know these are the things I want to be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So that can be a phase that can be really hard to get through.
Yeah. It's a journey, that's for sure.
It is, yeah. I feel you. I feel you on that. Well, thank you for spending some of that valuable time with us recently.
Oh, I am so glad
you've been
to.
a podcast machine. Woo. You really
We're a
helped
team.
out.
You can tell Wes is busy because sometimes you send him a message and he responds 18 hours later.
That does happen.
Yeah, that's true. Beardsley, the list is long for you, but I say avoid PC hardware and give me a biggest problem in your world right now.
Well, first, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to steal all of your answers and say those are all of my problems. Money, time, focus.
Yeah.
So, to start with the money, I apparently in the next 6 months need to figure out how to move 2 people and come up with like $100,000.
Well, that should be pretty easy. Yeah. Okay. So
sell the 2 people.
We got to unpack that because I'm not. I don't want people to think I'm kicking you out or something.
No.
So 2 people, you, and another person.
No. Me and 2 other people.
You, and 2 other people.
Correct.
In one place.
Correct.
You and 2 other people, and one of them is a human. Is the other one a human?
2 humans.
2 humans.
Are they both women?
Yes.
Oh, I could see how this is a problem. Oh, man, Rikai. All right.
So,
we
Chris,
got to unpack this a little bit.
Okay.
You and 2 women in an apartment.
In an apartment.
In a relationship.
Correct.
That is a complicated thing. Now, how much of this is on you to raise the funds to make this happen?
It's a collective thing.
Okay.
That's good. Also more complicated.
Yeah. That boy, wow. Okay, so you're going to move in with 2 women into a place, and you're going to try to pull it off in the next 6 months.
Yep. Remember that whole thing about how I said I may take too many risks?
And these people are not like, they're not here to help right now. They're not next door.
So, hello, Internet. I'm polyamorous.
Well, here we go. Well, that deserves a bell. What else deserves a bell today? I think that's the number one thing. So, both of these ladies, you are in a relationship with, and have been for a little while.
Yep.
And so the time has come to move in together.
Correct.
I mean, I don't know if you've caught this, but sometimes it's difficult to live with one other person, let alone 2 people. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this.
Maybe I'm just a better person than you, Chris.
That is definitely possible.
It is possible. Definitely when it comes to living with other people.
I take care of one, the beard takes care of the other.
Whoa! No!
Really, I'm 2 people.
That's true. That is a magnificent beard. It is that impressive.
Once you can teach it to edit for you, you'll be set.
I'll just take naps all day.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoa. So why 6 months? I mean, because
that's a compressed timeline.
It feels like that is a short amount of time to to even find a place in Seattle, let alone raise the funds and move 2 people in, plus you're 3 people.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm not including myself.
Yeah, so it's 3 people.
I should probably move with them.
4 with the beard.
So Well, and 3 pets.
Oh,
5 pets.
that's a
5
whole
pets.
Jeez.
A dog and 4 cats.
Okay.
That's a
That's a lot. That is a lot.
Yep.
That is plus a beard.
Is there anything else we need to know here that complicates this?
Yeah.
Well,
Are you all felons?
I'm looking for a place that also has a finished basement in Seattle.
Sure.
So I can have a recording area to maybe, host some podcasts.
Produce content.
Yeah.
Naturally. Natch.
Maybe Wes won't have to travel up to the studio.
Wes could go
Studio
to the
South.
Seattle Bureau.
Yeah.
JB2.
Yeah.
The winter studio.
Yeah, the JB2 Seattle studio.
You're going south, so it'd be the summer studio.
Yeah, there we go.
Do you have a plan B if the Seattle aspect of this doesn't work out? Because that seems like the poly stuff, I can wrap my head around that. But the Seattle stuff...
I like how that's the easy part.
It is.
You're a catch. It's fine.
Yeah, the Seattle stuff, that seems like, woo.
I feel like the audience might be more interested in that first part.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Okay.
The Seattle stuff, no plan B.
Now, what's the matter, Rika? Was one not enough? Let's talk about this. Why 2 ladies? Because most of us are probably familiar with the traditional 1 lady or 1 fella or 1 fella, 1 lady model.
Right. A 2-person partnership.
A 2-person model, you might say, but not Beard. Nope.
And I guess we should clarify too. Is
break the
this
mold here.
you with 2 separate relationships? Are they also romantically entwined?
yeah.
I'm not clear on that.
Oh yeah, is it considered a relationship of 3 people, or is it separate relationships?
It's separate.
Okay.
Oh.
But not because of any restrictions.
So they would be roommates, but not couples. Right.
It's up to them.
You're right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I guess so. But at this current stage.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And that probably makes sense because if you're going to room with somebody, might as well room with a mutual friend, I suppose.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And if they trust you, you're like, well, he probably has good taste. He likes me, so.
Yeah. You know where my head goes is to the sex. Because that's where I think, that's where that would be the angle you'd want to work. But I understand there's more to it than that. But that's where my head goes. It's like, well, how would I work this? So that way, everybody's on the same page sex-wise. You know what I'm saying?
That's actually relatively easy in my situation. Because one of the people is asexual.
Oh, okay.
So they have no interest.
All right.
That keeps it simple.
And the other person is kind of extreme.
Enjoys the sex.
Yes.
Yeah. Remember how I said that mistake I made a long time ago when I was a kid?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
It does seem interesting because there are a lot of there's a lot of different aspects to our relationship dynamic. There's a lot in terms of just support, partnership, help, people to talk with, share. And so, if there's some aspects you get from some person and then filled elsewhere.
Right.
And, at the same time, all these people are trying to live their own independent lives. And I know it can be pretty hard. Like, you don't have time for your spouse or significant other. You feel guilty. But if they have someone else that they can be with, maybe that makes it easier for you to develop your own life.
Yeah. And I think it just really is sort of like, how comfortable are you with the idea that when maybe you're having an off day, they can go with somebody else and have a great day too, possibly. Mm-hmm. So you have to really check your jealousy, I would imagine.
Yeah. The only real problem that I feel long-term might be an issue is trying to interface the fact that I have multiple partners with the current state of the world, like marriage benefits for one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of have to in the current model, you'd have to pick one partner.
Yep,
and marry,
which
then sort of sets like this primary partner precedence.
Yep,
which is sort of
have a rotational divorce. You get divorced every couple of years. You switch the primary partner. That's horrible.
I know the hand fasting is sort of like another method of essentially marriage, but not a traditional marriage. So there's other ways of doing that.
And something I do want to clarify. I am polyamorous. I am not a polygamist.
What's the difference?
Polygamists are people that just have multiple wives, and it's sort of a one man, many woman kind of thing.
Right. Like your what was that? There was an HBO show like that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. So that's which one?
That is polygamy.
Okay.
I am polyamorous, which just means I have feelings for multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Do you guys have any questions?
It's not the first. You're not the first person I've met in this situation, so it's not particularly new to me. I think most of my questions would sort of.
He just wants the sex.
What are you worried about? Because you gotta, it changes when you move in with a person. The relationship changes, and that can be a lot of things to deal with one person. But with 2 people, who are also not particularly familiar with each other as well.
Oh, they're actually fairly familiar with each other.
You know what I mean? Like, still though, like it's.
I could see it either being easier or more difficult.
Right, because you could all relate.
There's more energy in the house. It's not just one versus one.
Yeah.
But there's also, you have more roommates, and that can be difficult in and of itself.
And if anybody has any particulars about the way the house is, like everybody has to adapt more so to that, more accommodating.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's funny. I'm not actually worried about the living together situation. I think it's going to be perfectly fine because I know they get along really well. And it's basically just everything leading up to it.
Have you told your family?
I've told my mother, yes.
And how did she take it?
She was actually really happy for me.
Yeah.
She said, as long as I'm happy, just do whatever you want.
Carte blanche.
That's nice of her. That's very understanding of her, actually.
I have an amazing mother.
Yeah, it seems like it.
As for the rest of my
like
family,
the kind of thing a mom could freak out about.
Apparently, my sister listens to this, so she's going to find out via that.
Shout out.
That's what we're here for.
Congratulations, and thank you for listening.
Dark secrets and family surprises.
And I'm sure the rest of my family will find out because of that.
The things that the hashtag Ask Air segments reveal on this show. There's no limits. There's no limits.
So when I visit home next summer, probably, that's going to be an interesting.